And welcome back to Horror Queers. It's not your average episode, it's a Scream episode, and I'm Joe.
And I'm Trace, and yes, everyone, we are unlocking the Patreon vault to bring you our episode on Scream, or 5 Cream, or Scream 5, whatever you want to call it.
Sure.
Just in time for the release of Scream 6 this week. So yes, this is our Patreon episode that we recorded, I want to say, the Monday after this film opened last year, Joe?
It might have been a little bit later than that, because if you listen to the episode, you'll hear about my epic travel journey in which we had to delay recording so that I could go to another province to watch the fucking movie.
Yes. So if you're ever wondering where our Patreon money goes, sometimes it goes to things like last-minute travel expenses so that Joe can fly out of the country, train out of the country, whatever.
No, bitch, it was a plane.
To see a movie.
I did not travel 600 kilometers by train.
600 kilometers. That's less than it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. We explained it in the episode.
But yes, everyone. So this is our episode on Scream 5. And I'm curious, Joe, have your feelings changed at all since we last covered this film?
Yeah, so folks will hear me dance around the Billy Loomis visions, and on a rewatch, they're not quite as bad when you know that they're coming, but they definitely didn't land the right way for me the first time around.
Yeah, I feel pretty much the same way. I mean, this is still I still rank it below 1, 2, and 4, but above 3, but I still like it quite a bit.
Sure.
I've seen it, because my husband loves this movie, so I've seen this movie about 7 times since we recorded this episode.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I like a lot of it. I think it works very well as a bridge, although ask me again after I see Scream 6.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, that is the big question mark, and of course we'll have a lot more to say on the Patreon on Scream 6 when we cover it, basically in a week. So
yeah.
One other thing. So we did get some feedback when we released this episode. There were 2 things. One is that I mentioned something and then I never addressed it in the episode, because this is a mega episode, folks. We had a lot going on.
Yes.
So if you did listen to it on Patreon, you should definitely re-listen to it, because we snuck in that extra conversation that we never had the first time around. And then the other piece is that people were very surprised that we didn't talk about how hot Wes is.
Okay. I mean, it's Dylan Minnette. I like Dylan Minnette. He's a cutie patootie. So, yes, he is very hot. He is very old to be playing a 17-year-old or an 18-year-old kid, but he's very hot in this movie. Yes, I'll give him that. And also, love the highlights.
Yes, the highlights were back in a big way. I also do think it's funny that we got a boy shower sequence in this movie. So, Yay, Dylan Minnette.
Yes. Yay, Dylan Minnette. Fingers crossed for more boy shower scenes in the future, although I don't think New York City has that on deck for us.
Probably not. But we'll find out. We'll find out shortly.
We will find out. But yes, so yes, everyone, as Joe already said, we are going to be releasing an episode on Scream 6 on the Patreon this month. But since we will not be doing regular housekeeping at the end of this episode, we're going to get out of the way now. So if you go to our Patreon now, again, that is patreon.com/horrorqueers. This month, we've got episodes on The Outwaters, HBO's adaptation of The Last of Us, 65, the Adam Driver versus Dinosaurs movie, and the aforementioned Scream 6. Our audio commentary for the month will be on The Strangers Pray at Night to commemorate its 5-year anniversary.
Yeah, so a bunch of good stuff in there.
A lot of good stuff. But Joe, before we finally let our listeners listen to this episode, or re-listen to it for some people, what are we covering next week?
Oh my god, I'm so excited, Trace. We are covering a film that is celebrating its 25th anniversary, because we're all fucking old now. But this is absolutely a movie that could only have been made at this time. It is Wild Things.
Wild Things, the erotic thriller to end all erotic thrillers. And boy, oh boy, do I love this movie. I think it might be a 5-star film for me, Joe.
It's so fucking good. It's so messy. And when you watch it now through 2023 lens, you're just like, oh God, this is not all good. And yet so much of it is good.
I mean, look, it's all in poor taste, but it's very winky, nudge about it. And so if you've never seen Wild Things because you're like, ooh, lesbian exploitation with Denise Richards and Neve Campbell, it is that, but it's so many other amazing things.
Indeed. Yeah, this movie is just everything. So yeah, so that'll be next week's episode, Wild Things.
Sounds good. All right, everyone. Well, without further ado, we can, we're not going to cross it out yet, but we can walk into Scream 5 Cream or Scream 5.
Oh my God, just play the episode.
Hello, Sydney. It's an honor.
And welcome back to Horror Queers. We're talking Scream Without the Weinsteins or Wes Craven. We're talking Re-quel rules. And we're talking How Can Fans Be Toxic? And I'm Joe.
And I'm Trace, and we're talking no more lemon squares ever again.
Oh, wow.
I guess that's kind of a spoiler in and of itself. So, I mean, obviously, everyone, we're covering the new Scream 2022, and we are doing spoilers. So,
Yes.
Honestly, just stop listening if you haven't seen the film.
Yes, apologies to anybody who may have been in my situation and has been unable to see it.
Oh my god. Okay, so patrons, you might notice that this is coming a little bit later than our normal Patreon episode would on a new release. Joe, why is that?
All right, folks, I'm going to give you the cribbed notes on this. So, yes, I'm currently living in a province, aka state, for those of you who live in the US, where we are unable to go to theaters right now. So they are completely closed for the entire month. So Trace and I spent a lot of time hand-wringing about whether or not we were going to have to cancel this.
Well, it's funny, though, because basically we released the newsletter, January 1st, like we always do, and it said, Scream on the schedule. And then, was it like 3 days later that you got the notification that your theaters were closing down?
Yeah, because I think a lot of people thought that they were just going to do reduced capacity because that would have been a natural step. But we're under a very rigid authoritarian premier who decided that, I haven't been monitoring the cases closely enough, and now we're into like danger territory.
Right.
So they overcompensated by basically closing everything indoors again. So yeah, we had to decide whether or not we were going to try to make something work. And initially, it seemed like all of these options were just not happening. Like there were no press screeners. I couldn't go to my parents in Montreal because they were in the exact same boat. Like their theaters weren't working either. So we said we were just going to wait and we would cover it in February or possibly March, depending on when it hit VOD. And then all of a sudden I was like, well, how much is a flight a province over? So I ended up looking. I got a reasonably good deal. I'm not going to lie. This is where this month's Patreon money is going to be going.
Thank you, patrons. You helped pay Joe's way so he could see Scream.
Yeah, basically. I mean, we have a little disclaimer that says, hey, when you give us money, this is how we spend it. So this month, this is how I'm spending your money, is you paid for me to go see Scream. So I traveled from Toronto to Winnipeg, which, here's the math. It's 937 miles or 1,507 kilometers.
Okay.
So the fun thing was not only were there increased government restrictions on theaters in the province the day before I left, so everything was fine when I booked the ticket, and then the day before I was due to fly there, they reduced everything to 50%. So I was like, holy shit, okay. It's starting to feel like a net is closing in on this. My flight got delayed 3 times because there was 30 centimeters of snow in Winnipeg, the destination I was flying to. This meant that my trip, which was supposed to be a kind of leisurely day where I might even get to, play tourist, instead I got a total of 12 hours on the ground, which was enough time for me to have dinner, watch this movie twice, and then catch a red-eye home.
Oh my god.
So yay, Scream 2022.
I do not envy anything about that experience, and I'm glad you get to see it twice because I was really nervous. And I don't know how you think of this movie yet, but I was like, oh god, like watching this movie, which again is a big deal under those circumstances. Like I wouldn't blame you if you walked out being like, that was the shittiest movie I've ever seen because you were just so stressed out from your day.
Yeah, it was very much an ordeal. I'm happy to be back and safe in one piece, but you're absolutely right. I watched it the first time and I really didn't know how to feel about it, but I was coming down on the negative side, like, maybe this is worse than Scream 3, which again, as folks have heard us say numerous times, there is no bad Scream films.
Yeah.
But I had seen so much positive praise for this new one. I thought, okay, for sure, this is going to be really enjoyable.
Right.
And I had a couple of very strong reservations, but then watching it again almost immediately thereafter and knowing what to expect was really helpful. So I don't love this movie.
Right.
I think it has some big issues. I think I might soften to it over time like I have with some of the other films. But yeah, watching it a second time was really helpful. So folks, if you did only see it once and you were kind of lukewarm, I would say second time might be the fix.
I'm in a similar boat. I don't love this movie. I really like it. Like, I think I wound up giving it a 4 out of 5. And I did see this 3 times this past weekend. So I saw a press screening with me, my husband, former guest Jenny Nolf, and 20 other critics. No one else was loud, whereas my husband and I were like losing our shit for a lot of it.
Okay. Yeah, you even said that it was surreal because, folks, let's not forget, it has been a full decade since we have seen one of these movies on the big screen. So you said it was surreal, and I honestly felt the same way. Like, I could barely sleep the night before. Yeah, it was almost overwhelming, wasn't it?
Yeah, no, it felt like Christmas. Like, it had that day. Because for me, it was funny because I didn't know if I was going to get into the press screening. So I always had tickets to a 10 p.m. Thursday night show. I couldn't do 7 because we were recording. So I had to do a 10 p.m. show. But I got into the press screening. The problem is my husband, they gave us a +1. And the week before the press screening, they were like, oh shit, because Omicron's going up. So we're removing +1. So my husband had to apply for his own press ticket on his own. And he used to do press, but he hasn't in a very long time. And so we didn't know until the day of if we were going to get to see this movie. And
Jesus, just so much stress trying to get into this movie. Never mind, watch it, enjoy it, review it.
Well, and that's the thing, because I was like, no matter what, this was Wednesday. I was like, well, no matter what, we know we're seeing it tomorrow, Thursday, so it's fine. But it's one of those things. It's like, but we could see it today,
right?
So we did. We got to see it. So I saw it there. I went again the next night, opening night, to see it Thursday, and then Sunday I went to go see it in 4DX, which really fun. Wouldn't recommend seeing the movie for the first time that way. But it is a lot of fun.
It's like a little bit of a ride, yeah.
But yeah, no, I'm right here. It is surreal, and I was trying to explain why, because there are things I have problems with in the movie. There are things I don't like, and we'll talk about them when we go through the plot. But honestly, it was the thing where I was like, I have lived the past 11 years of my life with the ending of Scream 4 being essentially the status quo for this franchise.
Yeah.
And because for a kind of a lukewarm reception, I've spent a lot of those 11 years protecting that film and standing up for that film, as have you. And so, yes, the first time I watched this, it was a blur. Like, I registered everything I was seeing, but I wasn't processing everything I was seeing. So I don't want to say I liked it more on a second viewing, but I accepted it more on a second viewing, because that's the thing, right? Like,
you had to meet the film where it was at, not like, oh my God, meet me at my 11 years worth of expectations.
Yes, well, absolutely, right? 11 years of expectations. And again, when we go through the production history of, the 11 years of how this film even got here, it's a lot. It's almost like if someone close to you has died, and 10 years later, for some reason, they're back in your life, but they're different.
Right. Yeah.
Like, that's what this experience was like for me. So yes, it was just very, very surreal. But I'm glad I got to see it. I'm glad it's out. I'm glad we're finally able to talk about it. I'm glad you were able to see it. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure we will have lots to discuss.
Yeah, I will say too, I mean, you teased it off the top that this is going to be like a regular episode. We are going to go into it. There's going to be spoilers. But this was also one of the first films in a very long time where I couldn't be spoiled. Like, I recognize my privilege. I recognize the classism associated with the fact that I traveled to another fucking province and had the money to do so, to go and see a movie. I think it's a bit of a fun, ridiculous story for me to tell. But at the end of the day, it's also like, this was a movie that I just could not have spoiled for me on the internet. Like, I didn't care about Halloween. I don't care about The Conjuring. Not in that way, right? Like, if I learned details, I would be fine with it. This was a film that I have been waiting for so long. I had to see it for myself, and I didn't want any part of that experience to be ruined. And I managed to mostly get away. I had an Easter egg spoiled for me because God bless you, someone emailed it to us, and I happened to see it when I was scheduling a tweet, and I was like, motherfucking hell, okay. But it was a small one.
Yeah, so, luckily, because it doesn't play any part in the plot, right? Yeah. Honestly, it's the Kirby Easter egg, right?
Yes, correct.
I missed that on a first viewing until Bloody Disgusting lead critic and former guest, Megan Navarro, messaged me and was like, oh, did you see the Kirby Easter egg? And I was like, no. Mm-hmm. But when you know to look for it, it's there.
Right there. Yeah.
In an interview with Bloody Disgusting, no less. So Bloody Disgusting is canon in the Scream universe.
Woohoo! We'll take it.
But I'm surprised you stayed away from spoilers, like, as you did. Like, I was so... Because also, someone posted in the Facebook Horror Queers group, The Killers, and we promptly blocked them and banned them from the group.
That motherfucker. I would have reenacted my own Scream vengeance on such an individual.
I was so scared that you had seen that. And it was so funny because basically it was the night we were going to see Scream a second time, and our friend was there and he hadn't seen it. And I ran out and I was frustrated and I was like, oh my God, someone spoiled The Killers in the Horror Queers group. And our friend was like, you just spoiled something for me. And I was like, what do you mean? You said Killers.
Yeah, you actually did that to me too, but I kind of always default assume that there's two.
I know, that's kind of what I do too. But I mean, honestly, it would have been a subversion if there was just one killer in this one, but whatever.
Yeah, I have thoughts about the two killers.
Honestly, yeah. The thing with the killers is I've been processing my thoughts on them for a very long time. And like, I think I figured out why I like some of it and why I don't like some of it.
Okay. I'm interested to talk about it when we get there.
Yes. But last thing before we go into the production, so just dealing with spoilers. I know you did a really good job of this. I tried to be really good about avoiding, like, I had seen the trailer. I really tried to stay away from the marketing. My husband, on the other hand, was very much I'm watching the trailer every day.
Everything, yeah.
Well, and granted, the marketing is it's not spoiler. Like, the marketing was very good. It was very misleading. The problem is that the way my brain works, and I'll use an example here. Mm-hmm. So I've seen this trailer a lot because my husband has played it a lot. And there's a shot in the trailer of Judy, Marley Shelton, like, driving in the car and screaming. And I was like, okay. And I honestly, because I walked into this movie expecting Dewey to die, because there's also that shot in the trailer of Gail slow motion, like, crying and reaching out. So I was like, oh, they're probably both, like, finding out about Dewey's death. So I really walked in kind of expecting that. Mm-hmm. The problem is, when we get to that scene of Judy in the movie, and it's, like, obviously a set piece, I was like, oh, shit, she's about to die. Because not only... was that the only scene she's in the trailer? Like, she's not in any other scene. So the only thing I've seen her in, unless they did an even better job of misleading me, I was like, she's not in the rest of this movie.
Right.
And so I knew she was going to die the second that she got in that car.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. They could have been subverting our expectations because they could have just killed Wes and then she might have just disappeared for the rest of the film, but it's so unlikely. The problem with the Scream films is that if characters leave and are absent for too long, then you basically know that they're the killers going into the last act, or if they're featured only in like I knew that Kyle Gallner was going to be murdered.
Yeah.
I had a feeling that Mason Gooding, you know for sure he's going to get attacked because there's that scene in the trailer, but you don't know whether or not he'll live or die. And often the default is when characters have a set piece with Ghostface, they don't make it out alive.
Yeah. And like, I mean, yeah, the Kyle Gallner death scene is spoiled. The Mason Gooding attack is spoiled. Now, granted, I don't believe for a second he would have survived this attack, but I'm happy that he survives the movie.
There are so many times where I was like, okay, either Ghostface would just be a complete mess of bruises all over their face, because Ghostface takes it to the face like nobody's business in this film, or definitely at least 2 or 3 of these characters who quote unquote lived would absolutely be dead.
100%. But yeah, anyway, so just going back, the way my brain works is like, I'm not looking for spoilers in trailers. The problem is I'll be like, oh my God, there's that character I love. Oh yeah, that's the one thing I've seen her in this trailer. So my brain is like doing the work for me, like unconsciously.
Right.
But nevertheless, for the most part, I stayed spoiler free, and I'll wait until we talk about the killer reveal, because I do think that the way this franchise has evolved over the past 25 years and the fan base surrounding it has changed almost how we watch these movies.
Oh, for sure.
Both Jenny Nolf and the friend we saw it with the second time, both of them called the killers 40 minutes into the movie. And my friend even writing on a piece of paper 40 minutes, and these 2 people are the killers, and showed it to me after the movie credits rolled.
Wow. Yeah, I had an inkling, but I can't say why I thought it was them. But when it was revealed to be the 2 that it is, I was like, oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, I'll put a pin in that and we'll talk about it more like when we get to the actual reveal. But it was one of those things where I was like, honestly, like, because someone's like, oh, did you predict the killers? I'm like, no, but I also wasn't trying to figure out the killers. Like, I was very much on a ride. Now, did I find it a little underwhelming the first time? Yes. But again, put a pin in it.
We'll get there.
Okay.
So how did this film come to be, Trace?
Oh my God, y'all. So for the production stuff, I do research, obviously, but I start with the Wikipedia and I like parse through there, go through footnotes. Well, normally for films, like we don't have that much available when it's new. Not for this film. Thank you, Scream fans, for doing the homework for me.
Oh boy, we love our franchise and we covet every little detail, and apparently then we post it on Wikipedia.
That's exactly what happened. So let's go. In 2011, Wes Craven confirmed that he was contracted for work on a 5th and 6th installment of the Scream franchise to be made if the 4th film achieved a successful release and reception.
Yeah, shout out to our interview with Kevin Williamson, where we got details on what those other films would have been, and they sounded like doozies.
Oh, fun story, by the way. I haven't told you this. So, obviously, we knew our Scream 4 episodes were going to do well, and so the week we released those episodes, we had part 1 and part 2 of Scream 4. We released our porno queers on Cream for Me, and we released our interview with Kevin Williamson. That interview with Kevin Williamson did get the highest numbers on day 1.
Holy shit! Whoa. Okay.
Not to say the others didn't do well. They all did very well, but the Kevin Williamson one clearly attracted some outside listeners. So, following difficulties with script rewrites on Scream 2, Scream 3, and Scream 4,
Jesus Christ.
often with pages only being ready on the day of filming and the related stress of the situation, Craven stated that he would need to see a finalized version of a script for Scream 5 before committing to production. As we knew already, and as we got more details on in that interview with Williamson confirmed that he had contractual obligations for scripts for Scream 4 and 5, having submitted concepts for 3 films leading up to Scream 6, but he did not have a contract for Scream 6 yet.
Okay.
He indicated that if a Scream 5 were to be made, it would be a continuation of the story of the characters who lived through Scream 4, which, as we've discussed, is Jill and Sydney, and yeah. So, a month after Scream 4 opens, May of 2011, executive producer Harvey Weinstein, womp womp,
boo,
confirmed that a sequel was possible, saying that despite Scream 4 performing below the Weinstein Company's financial expectations, he was happy with the box office gross. And that's the thing where it's like, $40 million budget, but $97 million worldwide. Like, it's not a bomb. It's just...
It's just nowhere near what the other films were doing.
Yeah, and I doubt it turned a profit. Maybe if it did, it was a very slim one.
Yeah, I think so too.
So that's kind of the last we hear of it for about another year. So February of 2012, when asked about the potential for making Scream 5, Williamson said at the time he did not know if it would be made, but he did confirm, I'm not doing it. So...
Our boy.
Yes. So, okay, whatever. And this is kind of what we're getting for a lot of these early years following Scream 4, right? Like little tidbits and bites, because honestly, it seems like this franchise is just dead, like dead in the water. So September 2013, Harvey Weinstein expressed his interest in a 5th installment, stating, I'm begging Bob, Weinstein, to do the movie and just end it. We've milked that cow. So... A, that sounds terrible, but also B, it's like, well, at least you're giving us a 5th one to close it out. Not that the 4th one didn't close it out enough, but like, yeah. Okay, so let's go another year ahead to July 2014.
Oh my God, year by year. Here we go.
So Kevin Williamson basically says, like, Wes Craven and company is done with him. And it was a really weird quote that was pulled out. So I actually pulled some stuff from this interview, and it was with Variety, and it was from a Bloody Disgusting article, but... Williamson goes, it's weird. When I pitched Scream 4, I pitched Scream 4, 5, and 6. Following a panel for his new TV show, Stalker. Remember that? Love it.
Oh my God, stop it with Stalker. Stop it.
This is at the 2014 Television Critics Association Summer Press Tour. He goes, I pitched the whole trilogy. I guess Scream 4 never took off in a way they hoped. And so, Williamson goes on to confirm what any Scream fan already knows. He is not involved in the series development anymore. Wes Craven and his team are done with him. He also noted that these original pitches could very well turn into something bigger in the future, but he's literally sitting there on the panel, pointing at his computer going, well, it's here if you want to buy it from me.
Right.
And at this time, the Scream TV series was in development. So he was like, yeah, it's very possible that the Craven crew might want to use his ideas if the Scream TV series in development turns into a hit. But Williamson is not involved in any capacity. And I think with the show, correct me if I'm wrong, Joe, I think Craven was a producer, but Williamson was not, right?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, he was not involved in any capacity on the show, even as a consultant, he says. So he's like, yeah, if the show's like a big hit, like I'm curious, I'll watch it, I'll give it a go. Teen Wolf turned out to be really good, so maybe Scream will be the same. Yeah, not the case.
Teen Wolf, we love you. Scream TV show. Some people like it, yeah.
Yes. So moving forward another year, we are now in June of 2015. The Wall Street Journal conducts an interview with Bob Weinstein, and when asked about the possibility of a film continuation after Scream 4, he firmly denies the possibility of a fifth installment or any further continuation of the film franchise, basically saying the MTV TV series is the right place for the Scream franchise to find new life. His quote exactly was, "It's like putting an art house movie in an art house theater where the teens reside as MTV." Okay.
Yeah, I think that they really felt like the fan base, if this was going to continue, had to be teenagers, and they felt like teenagers are not going to support a film franchise. So they were like, television is where it's at. If the teens want this, it'll happen.
Yeah, but it also shows, I mean, I think what the again, quote unquote, failure of Scream 4 revealed to them was that the people who were fans of the films, of the first three, when they were coming out, who could see them when they came out, were not turning up for a new film. And so that's why they were like, we have to get the younger crew in. We have to shift focus over to them. Fuck these people who blasted us when Scream 4 came out.
I mean, basically, I don't want to say that's the line that you and I have had, but it's been really frustrating watching fans reappraise Scream 4 in the last decade and be like, oh, this film's actually really good. Oh, it's really prescient. Yeah. It's like, yeah, it fucking always was. And because you bastards didn't go out and support it, like, that's why we got the TV show, but that's why we didn't get more films.
Yes. And granted, it might have all been like, you know, God's or whatever the fuck's like higher plan, where it was like, because I'm not going to lie, while I would have loved more Jill, I wasn't in love with the idea of Williams in Scream 5 or Scream, well, maybe Scream 6, because I do like the Gale Weathers focus, but
it would have been a rocky transition for sure.
Yes, absolutely. And it would have been, well, I was going to say it was going to be more of the same, but it wasn't really going to be more of the same, which it's really funny when, you know, we went through all those reviews for Scream 4 and looking at some of these negative reviews for Scream 5, they have the same comments where it's like, oh, it's just more of the same.
Oh my God, I can't. Anyway, okay, move us along.
So, okay, now we're going into the Me Too stuff. So, following the closure of the Weinstein Company in the wake of numerous sexual misconduct allegations against Harvey Weinstein, the fate of the Scream franchise was in limbo. And I remember this is for me when I was like, well, we're done.
Yep.
No hope.
Stick a fork in it. She's done.
In early 2019, reports began to circulate that Blumhouse Productions was interested in reviving the series, and that studio head Jason Blum was working on making such Scream installments happen. Unfortunately, those were false. And I remember when those were coming around and everyone was like, oh God, do we want Blum to have his hands on this?
Well, yeah. And in fairness, we have trash talked Blum quite often on this podcast. It's not because we don't like the things that are coming out of Blum, but he either fully supports things and they can turn out really fantastic, or he throws pennies at them and they turn out like sometimes pieces of shit. So to take a legacy like the Scream franchise, you would have to hope that he would do it properly, and there's that concern that he might fuck it up. We don't have the same confidence in that as we do in folks like Williamson and Craven.
Well, and what I found so funny, because the meta of this movie is like off the chain. Like, I mean, like, again, in 4, there were critics that were like, oh, it's the franchise has become a snake eating itself. And I was like, honestly, I felt that in 5, not in a bad way, but I felt it because, again, you can tell this movie was made between the releases of Halloween and Halloween Kills, because Halloween is brought in as like an example of a requel done right. I wonder what Mindy Meeks Martin would have said about Halloween Kills.
Oh God, she would have hated it.
But honestly though, no, because the conversation of toxic fandom, like, go to Halloween Kills for that. Like, I mean, you and I both didn't like that movie, but the personal attacks and the entitlement in the Halloween fandom, which covers a wide variety of people, was just bizarre to watch. So watching the ending of Scream 5, I was like, God, I feel like I'm watching like Twitter Halloween Kills.
Basically, yeah. Evil dies tonight. Ghostface dies tonight.
So, in November of 2019, Spyglass Media Group acquires the rights to make a new Scream film.
Mm-hmm.
How did they do this? Here's my little legal jargon for you.
Okay.
Spyglass Media Group was relaunched as a content company in March of 2019 by former MGM topper, Barber, Lantern Entertainment co-presidents Andy Mitchell and Milos Brazovic, and strategic investors Eagle Pictures and Cineworld Group. Lantern Entertainment is the company that acquired all of Dimension Films' assets after the allegations against Harvey Weinstein put the company in bankruptcy.
Yeah, I was going to say, they got pennies on the dollar and basically just scooped up all those Dimension rights.
Exactly. And I remember when this announcement came out, it was like, oh, Spyglass has it, and they are working on a new Scream film. But it was like, oh, we don't know if Williamson's returning. We don't know if it's a sequel, a reboot, a remake, whatever.
Oh, God, there were no details at all. I remember the wild speculation, and nobody had a fucking clue what was happening.
Yep. So the next month, December 2019, which I'm like, wow, that seems so long ago. And it's like, oh, it's 4 months before lockdown.
Mm-hmm. That's why.
It was announced that the film would feature a new cast, but could possibly feature appearances from previous main cast members.
Right.
So in March of 2020, and this is about, 6-7 months after Ready or Not comes out, it is announced that Matt Bettinelli Olpin and Tyler Gillette would direct the 5th installment, and Kevin Williamson would be serving as executive producer, and that the film had already entered official development, with filming planning to begin in May of 2020.
Yep.
But that's the thing, right? Like, this is coming in March of 2020, probably a week before lockdown happens.
Yeah. This is probably one of the last press releases that got out.
Well, I remember, too, when lockdown happened, I was like, oh my God, what if, this new Scream movie gets canceled, right?
Like, from the jump, we were all just waiting for the bottom to fall out of this at any given moment. I remember people were super excited by these directors because Ready or Not had been, I think, a critical success. I don't think it was the financial success that they were hoping for.
Yeah.
But it felt like one of those conversations where, well, Wes Craven is gone, who could possibly step in to fill his shoes? And Ready or Not had the mixture of gore and comedy and just the kind of right finesse. So people were really excited, but then, it was like, shit, anything could happen now. Like, you and I have said this so many times, right? Like, until we have seen that they have wrapped shooting or we have a release date and all this stuff, like, that film is not ready. And at this point, it very much felt like, what if they just say, oh, you know what? We can't do it. We're just not going to do it.
And that is 100% what I thought they were going to do. So, cut forward 2 months, May of 2020, it's announced that Neve Campbell was in talks to reprise her role as Sidney Prescott.
The internet erupts.
Well, so here's the thing. So I remember, and I'm not going to drop a name because I don't know if it was illegal for someone to tell me this, but I know someone who got their hands on a copy of the script. And of course I was like, don't fucking spoil shit for me. And I was like, but is the trio in it? And they said yes, but they are in a much reduced role. Like, they are supporting players. And I was like, if Neve Campbell chooses not to come back, can the film move forward with the script they have in hand? And he goes, no, you would have to rewrite it. So I was like, okay. That's why, when Gail shows up 55 minutes into this movie, I was like, okay, normally I'd be bothered by this, but I knew it going in. I knew they were going to have supporting roles.
65.
Oh my God. Okay. So over the halfway point. Anyway, so the same month Neve Campbell is announced to be in talks to reprise her role, it's announced that David Arquette would be reprising his role.
Yeah, I remember people were very concerned, like, why are they securing David Arquette before they've got Neve Campbell? People were very concerned.
Well, and I guess, too, in hindsight, that was a get they needed to have since, spoiler alert, he gets killed, about halfway through the film. They could then just deal with rewriting the ending, or at least the last half of the film.
Exactly.
Anyway, so James Vanderbilt and Guy Busick are announced to co-write the film. And I remember again with this, I was like, fuck, I'm a little worried because Guy Busick, granted, he's fine. Like, his really only gig is, he was a co-writer of Ready or Not, and he will be co-writing the upcoming Final Destination 6. But James Vanderbilt.
Uh-oh, here we go.
He is the solo writer of Zodiac.
Okay, that's a really good one.
Yes, but it's adaptation. He's also a solo writer of White House Down.
Not so good, but some people like it. Okay.
Yeah, I haven't seen it, but it was like, that and Olympus Has Fallen, right?
Yeah, just generic action films.
The other one, though, his solo writing credit is Murder Mystery, the movie with Jennifer Aniston and Adam Sandler that was a Netflix movie.
Right.
I know you're going to like, bleh, but it's actually really cute. It's not great, but it's cute.
Yeah, no, I've heard that, and I recognize Adam Sandler's just not for me, so I don't seek out his projects, but I had heard from people that it was better than they expected.
But here's the thing, though. He has co-writing credits on the following films. Darkness Falls.
Oh, God.
Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2. Honestly, we'd probably be laughing about that more a year ago, but now that we have a Garfield Assance, we're probably fine.
Now that he's basically single-handedly rescued those two films by doing an extended cameo in the new one.
But he's also a co-writer on Independence Day Resurgence. And
oh, Jesus, God. Okay.
that was the one where I was like, oh, fuck. But then I looked at it, and there were like 5 writers on that movie, so I was like, honestly, like, who knows what he even contributed.
He contributed 2 lines of dialogue, and that's it. Yeah.
So they announced, not they, the writers, but it's confirmed that the film will begin production later in the year in Wilmington, North Carolina, when safety protocols to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic were in place. So,
did you know that that's where Neve Campbell lives?
No, but I did not.
I was like, did she make them shoot it in her backyard?
I honestly wonder if she's like, okay, I will do this movie.
I'm not coming to you. You come to me.
We talk about, Bettinelli, Olpin, and Gillette because and this is a story that's been told thousands of times by Neve Campbell herself, because she always said she would not do this franchise again without Wes. And they wrote her a very personal letter talking about their passion for Scream, the passion of the franchise, how they want to do this for Wes Craven. And well, I'm sure money was a factor for her. I do think their passion really hit it home for her.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that does really kind of come through in all of the interviews that they've done, that she's done, even in this credit, right? Like, the film doesn't end with a director credit. It ends with a for Wes credit.
Right.
There's something... And I'm sure folks who appreciate older franchises will laugh at me for this, but there has always been something really genuine and heartfelt about the Scream franchise, at least in my eyes. And I think that has carried over into the new film. But yeah, they absolutely had to sell her on it, and they had to sell us as an audience on it. Like, you are inheriting a really fucking big thing. It's not just a cash cow. This is something that's really, really important to people. Does that sound familiar?
Something with marketing, and again, all the press stuff they're doing, and you see them start telling, especially the trio, they're telling kind of the same stories over and over, because they're just like, y'all, what else do you want me to say? I get it. I get it. That's what I really enjoy watching talk show appearances, because I'm like, just the same stuff all the time, whatever.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
But there was a charming quality to all of this. And again, even in the marketing for the film, compared to something like Halloween Kills, where it's a story about trauma.
Yeah, which is not to belittle. I mean, hey, we're going to have a conversation about elevated horror versus more schlocky thing in just a couple of minutes when we get to the plot. But yeah, it feels like there's been more care taken even in the marketing for Scream. Like, there has been such a cheeky savviness to the way that they have executed all of this. And it feels very in spirit with what the film franchise is.
Yes, and that may be a flaw / fault of the fact that the Scream franchise has one through line, whereas with Halloween Kills, you have all these different...
Oh my god, so many branches.
Right, and so therefore you've divided your fan base into, okay, well, which part of the franchise do you like? Whereas with Scream, you don't really have that issue. So, again, not trying to shit on Halloween Kills. I get it's a harder task, but, go listen to our Halloween Kills episode.
Yes, go listen to the trauma recording.
In June 2020, Variety reported that the film was set to be distributed by Paramount Pictures and was initially aiming for a 2021 release, which would be 25 years since the first movie was released in 96, which, honestly, this movie came out 5 weeks after Scream's 25th anniversary, so it's fine.
Right. Yeah, I think a lot of people were just surprised that they didn't try to hit the milestone anniversary, or that they chose January, because of course, folks, we've actually done a full Patreon minisode on January horror releases because they have a bad reputation. But I think in this case, now in hindsight, this was a good decision for them because January is a dead month. And they were obviously also hoping to beat COVID, or rather hope that COVID would be beaten by the time the film came out.
Yeah, I think if we weren't in a pandemic, I don't think they would have, because they didn't move it to January. They were trying to go for 2021, but once production started, they got it done. Like they set that January 14th release date. Like it's been there for a year.
Yeah, people kept hoping that they would move it up. Like, oh, maybe they'll secretly stealth drop it in October. Maybe they'll do it for the 25th anniversary. No, they always plan for this date. And when you see how the marketing rolled out over the holidays, it was like, oh, they had their shit down pat. They knew exactly what days they were releasing things. That January date was set in stone.
Yeah. So it's not until July 21st that Courtney Cox posted a video on her Instagram account confirming her return to the franchise.
Mm-hmm.
In August, so a month later, in August of 2020, Melissa Barrera and Jenna Ortega are cast in undisclosed roles. I don't remember if they announced that, because I feel like I thought that they said Ortega was going to play a bisexual person, but maybe I'm misremembering that.
Okay, so I 100% remember seeing that it was her and she was going to be in a relationship with Amber, and I never saw anything to the contrary. So then when Jasmine Savoy Brown got cast, I thought, holy shit, we are stacking this deck with either lesbians or bisexuals or just queer folk. And then when I actually go into the theater trace, I still thought it was true. So I was so confused when she and Amber were not a couple.
Well, but honestly, because Amber's the most protective of Tara. I mean, presenting protective.
Yeah.
And honestly, I kind of wish she would have been her girlfriend, because then it would have made the significant others. Yeah. It'd been a nice little touch. But again, we'll talk about it later.
Yeah, indeed.
And then, September 2020, Jack Quaid joins. And then it was confirmed that Neve Campbell, Marley Shelton, and Roger L. Jackson were returning.
Oh my God, can you imagine? We're not going to do it with Roger L. Jackson. He was the one person we couldn't get to come back.
Oh my God, could you? I do love that he's actually in the credit. He gets his own little picture in the credits of this one.
Oh, well deserved. Well deserved.
But so the month that these people are announced is when filming began. So they start filming September 23rd, 2020. And it takes place across several avenues in Wilmington, North Carolina. They use a middle school there, blah, 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 blah. Oh, well, on top of maybe Campbell saying, please film it here, the film was awarded $7 million in rebates by the North Carolina Film Office.
There we go. Actually, hey, were you able to find a production budget?
$24 million is what I have.
Okay. That is cheap, man. Holy.
I think it's the same price as Scream 2. I think Scream 2 had a $24 million budget. But again, that's 24 years of inflation. So, nevertheless, both Scream 3 and Scream 4 had $40 million budgets, so they clearly learned their lesson.
Yeah.
Filming wraps on November 17th, 2020, and of course the existence of not only multiple versions of the film's screenplay, but also multiple filmed scenes to avoid details of the actual storyline being leaked before the film's release was confirmed in April of last year. So we're finally in 2021.
Okay.
Post-production completes July of 2021, and now we're at the release. So, Scream was released on January 14th, 2022. Well, technically the 13th because of those 7 p.m. and 10 p.m. Thursday night showings.
Oh, blah, yeah.
It was originally projected to gross about $20 million over the 4-day weekend, the holiday weekend.
Right.
A few sites were predicting 25 to 30 million. It went on to debut to an estimated 30 million over the 3-day weekend and an additional 3.8 million on Martin Luther King Jr. Day, making for a domestic gross of $33.9 million over that 4-day weekend.
I love that it exceeded expectations. That is a very promising start. Although I'm going to be interested to see if this has legs. I have a feeling this will be more of a Scream 3 situation.
Yeah, I do think it's going to have a big drop. The benefit is there's no competition for this film until I think Death on the Nile comes out.
Right. Yeah.
So I think it'll do fine, but I'm steeling myself for a 70% drop because I think most people that wanted to see this film did go see it already, unless we get a lot of repeat viewers.
Or, territories and nations that weren't unable to actually screen it. One of these days they will open up, and then maybe we'll just get a sudden windstorm.
Yeah, but nevertheless, though, outside of the U.S. and Canada, the film earned $18.3 million from 50 international markets its opening weekend. So worldwide, over 4 days, we were looking at a gross of $52.2 million against that $24 million budget. And
yep, good start.
I can bet you they spent a lot of money on marketing because, it was everywhere. And so I'm basing this just on previous kind of history, but no concrete facts. I think it probably needs to make at least 3 times its budget. So we need to make about $75 million to break even. So I think 75 is what I think it will make 75, but we'll see. On Rotten Tomatoes, we're looking at a 75% based on 208 reviews with an average rating of 6.6 out of 10. Metacritic, we're looking at a 60 out of 100. And CinemaScore audiences gave it a B+, while Letterboxd users have awarded it an average score of 3.6 out of 5 or 7.2 out of 10. So fans are liking this more than general critics. I mean, it's actually kind of hard now, even looking at Rotten Tomatoes. Like, you can look at the top critics or whatever, but like, because Rotten Tomatoes has now approved so many genre outlets, rightfully so, I think that's helping its critical.
Yes. We're starting to skew the results a little bit more positively towards genre fare.
Yes, because I do actually wonder if we had the same pool of critics from 2011 that were reviewing the film today, I feel like it would be lower like that film was as well.
Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's 40 minutes in. That's it.
That's it. That's all there is to say.
Yes.
Okay, folks. So here's the concession that we don't normally have to make. We don't usually go into this level of detail in terms of plot synopses for these Patreon episodes unless we've been able to, like, really watch the films numerous times. So This is Trace and I going off of what we can remember and what we were able to scrounge up. So apologies if some of the dialogue isn't spot on or if some of the scenes aren't in the exact right order.
And if we forget to mention some Easter eggs, we tried to make note of them all. We probably might miss some. Just be nice.
Be kind. Be kind. All right. So Scream 2022 or Scream 5. We can have a joke about that later on when we talk about Stab versus Stab 8.
Yeah.
We open on Tara Carpenter, who is played by the wonderful Jenna Ortega. So happy that she's in this movie.
She's so good. And
she's
so
really good.
When this started, because, half of the trailer is this scene.
Yeah.
And I remember being like, well, there's no fucking way they're going to kill her. And
I worried that they did.
Well, my thing was, I was like, I feel like it would be way too obvious at this point because, people are like, oh, well, they'll kill Drew Barrymore. I was like, yeah, but see, if that's the case, though, I don't think they would put most of this. Well, I'm sorry, not most of the scene. There's no dialogue, but like most of the events of this scene in the trailer. Like, I felt like that would be, I didn't trust them to do that. So I had an inkling she wasn't actually going to die.
Interesting. Yeah, I really didn't know what to expect, but based on 4 previous films worth of experience, I thought maybe, we were just going to spoil the fact that she's a goner. Okay. Yeah. So, we are in Woodsboro, and she is home alone. She's texting with her friend Amber Freeman, who is played by Mikey Madison. So, naturally, this is when Ghostface, played by Roger L. Jackson, calls, and Ghostface wants to quiz her on Stab trivia, and Tara protests.
This is such a... Okay, so we get this first jab at elevated horror. As soon as... This is a very good opening scene, in my opinion. I don't think it's like scary, like whatever. And again, that's a critique that a lot of critics lobbied against this film, which I'm like, fuck off.
Yep.
but I'm also kind of like, well, is your general audience never going to understand this?
Yeah, I think they actually do a really good job because, of course, she mentions elevated horror. She talks about the Babadook, and then she actually defines it as though Ghostface wouldn't know what elevated horror is.
Sounds kind of boring.
Okay, Ghostface.
But and when you get to the end, you know what it's about toxic fandom. It's like, of course these two fuckers wouldn't like elevated horror.
Back to basics, keep it 80s, all that good stuff. Yeah. Or in this case, 90s.
Yeah.
So she protests because she doesn't actually know these films, and Ghostface says, well, bitch, you're playing this or else I'm going to kill your friend. So she successfully answers 2 questions and a warm-up before overlooking Stu Macher as one of the original killers in Stab. And I found it interesting that this is a recurring theme throughout the film. We are having characters completely forgetting Stu Macher or mentioning him as Billy Loomis's accomplice. And I think it's very interesting.
Yeah, honestly, if anything with this film, the only thing I'm kind of like miffed by is that outside of some Easter eggs, we don't really get any recognition or acknowledgement of the plots of Scream 2, 3, or 4.
No, and I also take issue with that. I'm going to kind of reserve it to the end of the film where we talk about our overall thoughts and also where we hope the franchise goes from here. Because I do think if these box office numbers kind of persist in season 2, in week 2, then I do think we'll get more Screams, but I really hope that well, I'll just say it now. One of the things that I hope that they move past is this reverence for only the first scream / the first stab. I'm like, okay, I'm done with it because we did it with 3, we did it with 4, and now we've done it with 5. Let's break some new ground.
What I think happened here is that they're going off of 4 didn't do well. No one cares about 4. No one cares about the sequel. So that's why they were focusing so hard on 1. But what I hope is in the last 6 months, talk of the sequels has been wild, rampant on social media.
Oh my gosh.
And so I hope that they're looking at this and be like, oh wow, shit, people do like 4. Oh shit, people like 3. People like 2. Like, oh my God.
Yeah. Oh my God. We can talk about more than just the OG. Yeah.
Did you catch the cast of Stab on Tara's fake IMDb?
I did take note, but it was one of the things that I didn't remember to put down.
It's okay. I've got some. So we have Vince Vaughn as Stu Macher.
My God. At the age. It's so
we
bad.
have Craig Bierko as Cotton Weary.
Yes, that was the one I did manage to catch.
Tatum is Alicia Silverstone.
Perfect.
And Principal Hembry, I actually like this one. Principal Hembry is played by Ron Howard, a.k.a. Henry Winkler's co-star in Happy Days.
Yes, okay. I dig that, for sure.
Oh, man. And that's the other thing, too. How much did we talk about in our Scream 4 episode, how we wanted to see more of, like, the stabs? And we don't, we get 8, but, like, we don't get any of those other ones.
Well, no, we just get more of the OG stab with, you know, whoever this actor is playing
Nobody.
Randy. I'm just like, okay, I guess.
Honestly, that would have been funnier if they actually could just cast Jamie Kennedy in that role.
Oh, no, I think it would have been too distracting. I think it would have been funny, but I think people would have actually gotten confused.
Yeah, for sure.
So because she has gotten this question apparently wrong, even though Ghostface, as always, very carefully worded it to make her think that there was only one killer and then said she got it wrong when she didn't name both, we proceed to get some smart home technology horror where we're locking and unlocking doors using smartphones. That's fine, whatever. And then the killer is inside, and in case you thought that Scream 4 was a blip in terms of how heavy and brutal this gore is, her leg is broken and she gets stabbed through the hand, and then she gets stabbed a couple more times, and then we go to credits. So we don't see a kill shot. We're just left to assume.
And I will say that with this character, so she doesn't heal. These wounds will plague her for the rest of the film.
Indeed.
It is, yeah, and I will tell you too, so watching in 4DX, and listeners, if you don't know what 4DX is, it's basically like, if you go to like a Universal Studios and you go, you see Shrek in 4DX, it's like, your chair will move, so anytime someone's getting thrown around, your chair is fucking jerking you around.
Yep, but not in the sexy way.
Not in a sexy way, no. And I was fine with it until the climax, when literally I was like, I can't even process what's happening on screen because I am being thrown around so much in my chair. They splash water in your face whenever someone gets stabbed, so you feel like blood's hitting you in the face.
Nice.
Whenever there's a gunshot next to someone's ear, you'll have a little puff of air come behind your neck. Like, it's this kind of shit. Like, it's a fun gimmick. It's a little novelty. And if you're willing to spend $20 on it and you have a theater near you, go enjoy it.
Yeah, it's really good for action films and horror films because you're going to get the biggest bang for your buck.
Well, even like when the film opens, you know, it's outside Tara's house and we hear like the wind in the night. Like, we had wind blowing on us, so we felt like we were like, you know, outside. It's
sensory, baby. You're living the movie. This is a plug. We're not being paid for this. Wait, what? No. Okay.
I know. Go 40X, y'all. They're our new sponsor.
Yeah. Use promo code HorrorQueers. No, don't. It's not a real thing. So we begin the film after the title, and we are in Modesto, California, Trace. We are introduced to Sam Carpenter, who is played by also wonderful Melissa Barrera.
All right. Okay, so let's dig into this then, because have you seen people hating on her?
What? Fuck off.
Oh,
why?
Yeah, I know. People, a lot, I mean, not everyone, obviously, but it's like a certain subset of people who are like, oh, that girl was so wooden, her line delivery was so stilted, she's like the worst actress in the film, like she's blah, blah, blah.
Are these people racist, perchance?
Yeah, believe me, because we had, I mean, some people like that were like, oh yeah, like, you know, I'm so proud to have these like Latina actresses like headlining a horror film, and people were like, oh, well, she was terrible.
I think she's perfectly fine. I prefer Ortega, but I think it's also because Ortega gets to do more emotional stuff.
So I talked to someone that didn't love Barrera in this film, and I was like, okay, but is it the acting or is it the role? Because we are essentially we're doing a requel of Scream.
Yes, we are.
We entered this film knowing she has baggage already. And we'll find it out sooner than I thought they were going to reveal it.
God, oh my God, thank goodness.
Yeah, like when they revealed it, I was like, oh, thank fuck we're not dragging this out. Like,
yes, exactly.
But it mirrors what happens to Sydney in the first movie, where it's like, okay, we know, because the movie hints at something being wrong, like something happened in her past, and we get it revealed in Act 1 with that newsreel.
Yeah.
But Sam's arc mirrors Sydney's, and that, she's just kind of playing the sad sack role. And I hate to be this guy, y'all, but like the Sydney that I love, I didn't really get her until Scream 2, which maybe is a reason why I prefer Scream 2. And this isn't to say that Sydney is bad in Scream 1, but again, I don't think the issue here is Barrera's acting. I think she's doing everything she can with a role that unfortunately she just has this burden on her the whole time, which is why I'm excited for a potential sequel, because then we will get the Scream 2 version of this character.
Exactly. We're cued to it right away that she has issues of some kind, or she is dealing with something, because she is literally introduced covertly taking pills. It's like, oh, okay, well, she's either self-medicating to deal with something, or she maybe has a narcotics problem, or she's in pain of some kind. All of which are like viable avenues for a character to have things that they need to process.
I thought they were antipsychotics, and that's an aspect that I wish was explored more with this character, because again, I mean, spoiler alert, we have her seeing Billy Loomis in this movie.
Yep.
And so I thought, because, she was like, oh, I was afraid I would be just like him. So I actually thought she was taking antipsychotics.
That's what she is taking.
Oh, okay, cool. Never mind, I'm right.
Billy says you're taking antipsychotics.
Oh, shit. I've seen it 3 times, y'all. I got it.
I saw it twice, and I'm going on 5 hours of sleep here.
Oh, my God.
So we are also introduced to her boyfriend, Richie, who is played by Jack Quaid. Folks, if you watch The Boys, he's obviously one of the main characters on that, and it's a very kind of particular brand of comedic line delivery.
You know what I always forget he's in? He's the love interest in Tragedy Girls.
Oh, yeah. Similar kind of character, ironically.
So I like him in this movie, and
sure.
I think he's very delightful, very fun. I feel like he fits this franchise very well.
Agreed. Yeah. I have thoughts on his villain reveal at the end, but I think he's a good fit for this character all the way up until that reveal.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. So he's coming to check on Sam, and then she gets a phone call from Wes, who is played by Dylan Minnette, and this is where she learns about Tara's attack. And it is important that we are immediately told here that Tara has survived and she is expected to pull through.
Yeah.
So it's like, hey, a new thing for the franchise. A character has survived the opening segment. That's never happened before.
And that's the thing, too, where it's like, that could have been a fun... it is a subversion. Yeah, that is what it is. But it's just not the same as 1996, right? The 1996 is like, oh, like, here's Drew Barrymore or whatever. But, like, you don't have this fucking internet.
Yeah, I think part of my issue with the opening, as good as Ortega is, the sequence just feels a little ho-hum, been here, done that kind of deal. I think in part, and maybe it's just because we rewatched Scream 4, but that's almost the same thing. Like, take out the Stab 6 and 7 opening.
Right.
And when it's just Marnie and Jenny, it's like, it's a couple of people having a conversation around a kitchen, and then they get attacked, and in one film they die, and in this one, she just gets really hacked the fuck up. Like, I enjoy the Ghostface quizzing stuff, but it's been done so often. I really wanted something that was different. Like, I was hoping for not a domestic space.
No, I get what you're saying. I think for me, everything before she opens the door and gets slashed is fucking fantastic.
Okay.
It's once she sees Ghostface the first time, I'm kind of like, okay, like, there we go.
Yeah.
It's just because, we are essentially redoing Scream, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and honestly, I think I'm also kind of done with redoing Scream this many times now.
And it may be because we've seen a lot of slashers recently that are maybe not redoing Scream, but they're definitely following the Scream aesthetic and formula.
Yeah. I mean, it's a problem with being a trendsetter is that then everybody follows you and you look like you pale in comparison, or that you're old hat, because everybody's like, oh, I've seen it a billion times.
But I will say this, though, because there are people, and this is Jenny, too. She was like, this is the movie that I thought 4 was going to be, in the sense of, we're reintroducing a new generation and we're giving them the franchise with like, and I was like, and maybe that's my issue. Maybe that, because here's the thing. I actually think that this may be a better movie than Scream 4, but I like Scream 4 more than this movie. And
Yes.
Maybe it's because I like the fact that we had that rug pull where it's like, oh, you think we're passing the torch? Fuck y'all. We're killing the young generation and just keeping the new ones around.
Yeah, this one's cueing us right from the jump. Like, we're introduced to this new character, but then she's not killed, so she will remain a character throughout the rest of the film. And then we meet her sister. Like, we're not seeing Sydney. We're not checking in with other people. It's like, no, we're introducing you to new characters. This is your cast. You will get legacy people. They will be here, but you gotta wait for them.
Right. And I think that's why, though, so if you had that mentality of Scream 4 where you were like, I don't like that they introduced this new cast only to dispose of them because it's like, what's the point? I think you're going to have a better time with Scream this one. Agreed.
Scream, this one, the 5, yes.
Right. And that's what I'm saying, though, whereas I do like this movie. I think it's probably a better movie than Scream 4, but I like the character trajectories and what Scream 4 does more than I like what they do in this movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's continue to pull at that thread as we go along, because I agree and disagree in some ways.
Yeah.
Which is vague booking to the extreme, but it'll become clear as we go. Okay, so we hop back to Woodsboro, and this is where we get introduced to Tara's friend in a quintessential quad chat. Yeah, so these friends include Wes, who we actually get to see, as well as Amber, who we actually get to see. So I've already talked about who the actors are. And then we also have the twins. So we have queer Mindy, who is played by Jasmine Savoy Brown, having the best fucking year. Her and Jenna Ortega is just like, watch that ascent.
I mean, well, because I don't think Jasmine Savoy Brown has anything like in the books for this year. But, you know, we've got Sound of Violence last year. We've got Yellow Jackets. We've got this. Also, to me, she is the MVP of this film.
Interesting.
Well,
okay. No, we'll get to it.
She doesn't get enough to do, but like I found her out of all the new characters, like, oh, I want more of this character. I want to spend more time with Mindy.
She pops the most, yeah.
Yes, but Jenna Ortega, y'all, we've got a year of Jenna Ortega coming.
Fuck yes, we do, and I'm here for it. Okay, so Mindy is one half of the twins. The other half is self-aware jock Chad, played by Mason Gooding, who also is definitely on the ascent. Like, this film cast good teens, or adults playing teens.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Dylan Minnette, forever a teenager, almost 30.
I checked. He's actually only 25.
Oh, shit. Okay.
I know, because I was just like, this kid has been playing teens for his entire career, but I guess he actually started young.
I actually did like him in this movie. And I would have taken
really
more of him.
Like him.
Yeah. Now, what about Liv?
Yeah. So this is Chad's girlfriend. She is played by Sonia Ben Amar. And I like Liv, but I also feel like there's another version of this movie where Liv is the killer, and that is maybe a better fit for this character.
Well, why do you think she had red-dyed hair, Miss Red Herring?
Oh, Jesus God. How long have you been working on that one?
No, honestly, because she is like if Olivia from Scream 4 made it to the end of the film. The problem is she's just, I like her, and she gets more interesting the more mysterious they make her.
Yes.
But then it's kind of like, oh, she was shot in the face. So it's like, I like the character, but I also don't. Actually, look at this.
Yeah.
Generally, how do you feel about this new group of people?
Okay, so that's kind of what I was teasing, is that I feel similar to them the way that I felt about the teens in Scream 4, where I like them on principle. I think the actors are good, but I don't know enough about the characters.
Right, and that's the thing. So this is a movie that does pass the torch, but...
It's only to Sam and Tara.
Yes. But it doesn't give all of them enough time because we still have to deal with the legacy characters once they... So that's the problem, right? Once Dewey and Gale and Sydney are back, we kind of have all these friends outside of Sam and Tara sidelined for the entire second act of this film.
Yeah, and I think in part it's because they want some of them to be red herrings. Like, I firmly believe that Liv is actually the killer in other drafts of this film, because everything to do with Vince, who is the Kyle Gallner character who shows up, you know, we get teased with this backstory where they had a summer fling. He seems creepy. What's he doing here?
He's Stu Macher's nephew.
Like, it feels like they are building up to something, and I'm like, well, I want to see those deleted scenes or this alternative draft of the screenplay, because I'm willing to bet that they are killers in another version or something like that.
Actually, okay, again, like other movie, we don't have an inkling that Sam is seeing Billy Loomis, that she's Billy Loomis's daughter. So we have the killers be Sam. So she's like literally it's revealed like when she's revealed to be the killer. Oh, cut, like move to the side. There's Billy Loomis. She's seeing him and talking to him. Also, the girlfriend of Stumacher's nephew.
Right. Yeah.
Like, imagine the two women teaming up because they both have a connection to the original killers. I mean, again, not saying it'd be better, but like, I do think that would be kind of, well, for me personally, it's a bit more exciting.
Yeah. I don't think they made necessarily bad decisions, but particularly with the Amber character, this is a missed opportunity. And Liv feels like the same thing. Like, maybe we should have only had one character, and it was either Amber or Liv.
Well, and I think that, too, that for me, that's something on a rewatch. Like, it worked better because I was like, okay, really, though, where are you going to put these people in the second act? Because what happens is we have the Judy West set piece, then we have Sid come in, we have Gail come in, and then we have the hospital set piece, and then we go to the party. So it's just because we have these two set pieces that are, while bringing in the legacy characters, I'm like, I don't know where you could put more of these teens in the middle of this movie without breaking up the pacing.
Yeah, or you got to put them in danger, right? Like you maybe don't sideline them. Maybe you have somebody over at Wes's house with him and they have to run out or something. I know we don't like to spitball in terms of things that could have been done differently, but I do have one thing that I'm interested to pitch you when we get to the hospital.
Okay, fair.
Okay. We're still just introducing these characters. Let's move it along.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so we're introduced to Vince. There's some minor drama, and then we get the heads up that Tara is awake. So everybody heads to the hospital except Liv, which again, it's like, okay, red herring and or drop bot bread.
Yeah, it really tries to frame her as like, what's she doing? It's mysterious.
She doesn't want to go visit her friend who nearly died. What are you too busy doing, Liv?
Well, she's probably going to go see Kyle Gallner.
Basically, yeah. Okay, so Sam catches Richie up on the Stab franchise en route to Woodsboro because he claims he's never seen any of them. This is where we get our shout out to Scream 4 when the last round of attacks apparently happened in 2011. We don't even mention Jill. We don't get anything more from that.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? And honestly, with the motive we have, again, we don't have to talk about it yet, but like, I feel like it pairs so wonderfully with that motive from 4. So the fact that we don't even get a name drop of Jill Roberts in this movie, I was like, really? Really?
Yeah. They basically just squash the idea that she was an American hero and the sole survivor of the reboot. And guess what? That's not how news works in this day and age. Like, as I said in Scream 4, I 100% believe that there would always be people who would think that Jill was that famous victim, even though there would be reports otherwise that she was the killer.
Even, like, I mean, again, I'm not saying Sydney has to go through, like, well, this is what happened to me beat by beat to Samantha when she meets her, but I'm like, you don't want to be like, even my fucking cousin tried to kill me.
Yeah. Sydney, maybe give her the heads up. But really, at the end of the day, it's like Sydney comes in and Sam's already on the way out the door.
Yeah.
Okay, so we come to the hospital, and this is where Sam and Richie meet everybody, so we get reintroductions just in case you missed anybody's names. So I was trying to keep an eye out to see if Amber and Richie give each other some kind of knowing look, but there isn't really anything.
No,
there.
But they go out of their way to be antagonistic towards each other.
Oh, yeah, that really comes into play after Sam is attacked.
Yeah, but oh, yes, absolutely. You'll spot it more on that second viewing.
Yeah. So everybody clears out except for Sam so that these estranged sisters can talk, because it's very clear that Tara and Sam have not seen each other in a while, because Tara is almost surprised and enthusiastic that Sam has actually come.
So help me with this, because the math here is this. So she's like, oh, you left 5 years ago.
Yes.
She left on her 18th birthday, so she's 23 now.
Sam is 23, Tara is 18, and the drama with the dad happened 5 years before that when she was 13.
Right, okay, but here's the thing. Sam is 23. Scream is 25 years ago, so Billy Loomis died 25 years ago.
Yeah, so that math doesn't add up then, does it?
Well, unless it's like, oh, we're filming in 2020, so maybe that's the mentality there.
Yeah, because they do say in the closing credits, the reporter says it's 25 years to the date, or something to that extent.
That doesn't make any sense.
I don't know, man. Yeah, the paternity stuff.
I can believe Billy fucked someone else. Like, I can totally believe that, but I'm like, well, she needs to be like 24, 25 then, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah, the math isn't 100% there. That's fine, though. So as the sisters talk, we cut to this nearby bar, and Amber does a quick exposition dump to get us caught up on how Sam was a troubled teenager after her and Tara's dad left. And then, she abandoned Tara and their mom 5 years earlier. So that's how long the sisters have gone without seeing each other.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
This is when Vince shows up to cause some more drama. Everybody gets kicked out of the bar, and then Vince is basically just killed after we get our red right hand.
And you know what? That's fan service because people complain about it not being in 4, and I'm totally fine with it. Like, it's not a big deal.
Nope.
Again, it's one of those things where I'm like, I mean, I get it. They're going to spoil a death. Like, okay, spoil the one that's in the first 20 minutes of the movie. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, it's like, oh, man, like, you got Kyle Gallner. Like, do something with that.
Oh, no. This is a thankless role for an actor that you and I both like. He's also in full greasy old man aesthetic, which I was not here for. This, to me, honestly, I've said it a couple of times now, I feel like it's a drop plot thread, but also it feels very much like a studio note. Hey, we need another body. It's been too long, because this death comes to nothing. Like, we learn that he's Stu Macher's nephew, and nothing.
Yeah. I mean, that's it.
Mm-hmm. Like, we're full Scream 2ing where it's like, oh, he's got a connection.
Yeah,
and then we move on.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, Liv's last name is Mackenzie, so I was fully expecting there to be something where she was like, "Oh yeah, I lived next door to Casey Becker when I was like 2 years old."
Yeah, I remember you mentioning that, and we both got excited thinking it was going to mean something, and then it's basically tantamount to, Sydney getting treated by Stephen Orff's dad. Whatever.
I also have questions because Kyle Gallner's character is clearly of age to drink because he says, "Do you want a real drink?" And he was fucking this minor.
Oh, yeah. Well, he's a gross-out old dude. He's clearly fine with statutory rape.
Okay.
That's why he needed to die, Trace.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's dead. I do like how quickly and easily he is dispatched, though. Mm-hmm. We love a good chase/fight scene, but this is poke in the neck, and then you just bleed out. It's so brutal and abrupt.
Yeah. And that is something, like, people have commented on this a lot, but these deaths are... They're brutal.
Yep.
Like, we don't get intestines, like we don't get an Olivia death scene, but every puncture of this knife, like, you feel it.
Yeah. Yep. It's good. And when people are getting stabbed, they're getting stabbed a whole fucking lot.
Yeah. It's very fast.
People are a little knife happy in this one.
Which I will say, because most of these kills, I think, are done by Amber. And honestly, based on how Mikey Madison plays her in the climax of this film, I fully believe that this is how she would stab someone.
She has a very nervous energy throughout this film, which again just makes me wish that we got more of the Amber character.
Yeah. Again, I got reasons here. But...
Okay. So this weirdly gets treated like a bit of a dream sequence because fully the first act of this movie wants us to think that possibly Sam is having psychotic breaks and killing people as Ghostface. So she wakes up as though she has committed this murder, and she sees that Richie is watching the Stab films on Netflix in the corner. He claims it's because he wants to do his research. That becomes contextualized when you've seen the film.
But he's also just like, oh, it's my favorite movie, so of course I'm watching Stab.
God, yeah. Whoop, you got me. It's basically the equivalent of masturbation. It's just at Stab. So she takes a breather to go to the break room. This is where we get the most divisive element of this film. So she hallucinates that Billy Loomis, played by a de-aged Skeet Ulrich, is urging her to confess to Tara why this is all happening.
So here's the thing. I do not mind the idea of this. I don't like the execution because the CGI de-ageification does not look that great.
Nope.
I wish what they would have done in execution is just bring Skeet Ulrich in, have him whisper in her ear, and have every shot of him talking to her be a close-up of his lips in her ear.
Right.
Like, I mean, I get it. It's like, oh, she's seeing visions of her dead dad that she's never met before. And it's very soapy. I don't mind it in concept. I just wish it was executed better.
So follow me on this weird side tangent deep dive. Remember when we guested on the queer quadrant and we were talking about Cruel Intentions?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we watched the Cruel Intentions defunct pilot, and in that, the Catherine Montrose character played by Sarah Michelle Gellar envisions that she is having sex with the Sebastian character who was played by Ryan Philippe, but they don't bring Ryan Philippe back. So we see his trench coat, we see his hand, we see like basically they fetishize him to the point where you're like, oh, context clues, I know who this is, but we don't have that actor. And I feel like they would have been better to have done something like that, or just to have her imagine it, but maybe not show it to us.
Yeah, I mean, again, it just comes across a little hokey. And luckily, we only see him 3 times in this movie.
Yeah.
So it's not a deal breaker for me, but yeah, it is. I don't even want to say it's my least favorite part of the film. It's just like it doesn't completely work for me. Yeah.
Yeah, I will say I was more willing to go along with it because initially my gut reaction was, what the fuck are we doing? This is not Scream. If Wes Craven was here, he would not be doing this. But then I took a step back and I thought, you know what this reminds me of? This is Sydney's mom in Scream 3.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, it's just that it's not executed as well. I mean, it's not really executed all that well in Scream 3 either when, mom is climbing the window.
It feels out of place. It doesn't belong in this. It's supernatural. Well, the thing is, though, yeah, I guess so. Because I'm like, it's Sydney's imagination, I will say, I had an issue with the last thing with the last appearance of Skeet Ulrich, when he like nods to her where the knife is.
Oh my god, it's fully Chris Kattan from House on Haunted Hill 99. Like, go, I'll pull open the door and you can get out, Allie Larder.
It is that, but I was also kind of like, wait, were they trying to like absolve Billy Loomis? They trying to like make us like Billy Loomis? But then I was like, but it's her, but it's her projection of him. It's not really him. So it's like I'm able to wipe that away and be like, well, she's never met this man,
right?
And it's the only like it's a father she doesn't know. So him being her projection of Billy Loomis, I can buy that.
You're right. It's more about her, and I think it's her attempt to reconcile the fact that she is not a bad person if she commits this act of violence.
Right.
Even though she does weaponize the line by saying, like, I'm a serial killer's daughter and don't fuck with me. I think it's her saying, I'm not him, or maybe...
Yeah. It doesn't fully work, but I don't hate it.
Yeah. Okay. So this is when she gets a phone call from Ghostface and she is attacked. It's pretty brief. I think it's just an adrenaline boost, but it also then puts her into a room with Sheriff Judy Hicks, who is played by Marley Shelton. And of course, we learn that she has a history with Sam because, of course, Sam was a bit of a juvenile delinquent. And this is also where we get Richie and Amber pointing fingers at each other like children.
Yes. I don't know about you, but I wanted more Judy in this movie. I'm not mad about her death, and we'll talk about it in a minute, but I will say that her death affected me like more than Dewey's death in this movie.
Whoa, okay.
I think it's only because I literally walked into this movie expecting Dewey to die.
Right. And you maybe didn't know that about Judy.
Definitely. Even if I thought that she was going to die, I was like, I didn't think she was going to die that early because I thought we were going to get more fun, quirky Judy moments. It's not a knock against the film. I just like, oh man, when she like dies, I was just like, God damn it.
Yeah, I feel that because we had a lot of fun praising Shelton's performance in 4, and I was really looking forward to seeing that quirkiness come back for this film. Unfortunately, what we get is a bit of an evolution of the character. She's more mature, right. She actually has a son now, and she's the sheriff, so she's not the same brand of weird as she was in 4, but I do like that Shelton has remembered some of the mannerisms. Like after she tells Sam, hey, in the morning, you need to get the fuck out of town. Yeah. She then does her robotic-y stomp down the hall, and you're like, okay, there's Judy. Yeah, I see her.
Well, I mean, again, in her phone call later when she's like, I prefer animated films and musicals.
Oh, I knew you would love that line. I immediately thought of you when I saw that.
Oh, I cackled.
You're so easy. You're such an easy mark.
I know.
All right, so back in the hospital room, this is where Sam kicks Richie out again, and she tearfully comes clean. So we get this backstory. At age 13, she learned her real dad was Billy. This caused her quote-unquote other dad to walk out on the family. This is when Sam turned to drugs. She left because of the guilt of breaking up the family and not being able to face Tara, and Tara looks at her through all of this and just goes, you need to get the fuck out.
Yeah.
if there's a drinking game to be played in this film, it is when people tell other people to get the fuck out.
We do get a lot of fucks in this movie.
It's a bit too much, to be honest.
I'm fine with it. I do think that we as a society have really started using expletives a lot more in casual and professional conversations. So I do 100% believe that these kids would be doing this as well.
I do as well. It's just in a nearly 2-hour film, I feel like it gets to the point where it's almost watered down because we are just saying fuck in almost every other sentence.
Yeah, I don't have an issue with it like you do, but I understand what you're saying. I get why you would have that issue, because it's like if you're saying fuck, like it's a curse word, you want it to mean something.
Yeah, like even in this moment where Tara, she says get the fuck out, I think 3 times, and part of me thought, okay, wouldn't it be more emphatic if she says get out, and then Sam doesn't move and she's like, no, get out, and then she's like, get the fuck out.
Yeah. No, I absolutely totally get it.
Anyway, so Sam does indeed get the fuck out. And in the hallway, Richie has overheard the whole conversation, and Sam is like, okay, well, I'm not welcome by the police. I'm not welcome by my sister. So there's only one thing to do. I need to be proactive and catch this killer. So they turn to the person who has survived such an experience, former Sheriff Dewey Riley, who is played by David Arquette.
So what are your thoughts on Dewey's transformation in this film?
This is tough. You know, we spent a lot of time talking in 3 and 4 about the arc of his relationship with Gale and how 4 really seemed to find him in a good place. So it's pretty startling to see. And I don't want to make a classist judgment, and the people who hate when I go woke are not going to like this, but there's absolutely nothing wrong with living in a trailer. There's a lot of people who live in very nice, very souped up trailers. Some people choose to live there on their own volition. Like, it doesn't have to be an issue. This film clearly is using the fact that he is living here and it's dilapidated and it's filled with bottles of alcohol to make a certain class judgment about how far Dewey has fallen.
Yeah, I get that. I will co-sign on your yes, like linking like living in a trailer to blah, 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 like to a certain like class of people, whatever. It definitely is a thing where it's like, oh, like I hate that this character who has been the heart and soul of this franchise like has fallen this far.
Yeah, and that's really, you know, more of where we're supposed to obviously take it. It's, oh shit, Dewey is in a rough spot. Like, we very quickly learned that he is day drinking. You know, he's not shaved. He clearly hasn't showered. Yeah. And Gale is not there.
Well, and when I say I hate that he's fallen this far, to me, it's not a critique of the film. I don't mind that this is where he is. And again, it's a thing where it's like, well, it's been 11 years. Like, I mean, like, I can fill in enough blanks. It does... What bothers me a little bit about it is that when Gale and him finally meet, and again, this is how I really knew he was going to die, because like their conversation together. Yeah. But it's like, okay, they go to New York. He couldn't hack it. He left in the middle of the night.
Yeah, after 2 months, and now he thinks of himself as a coward. You're just like, oh, okay.
I get him not leaving. I mean, we've been through this whole thing before in 3 when he's like, oh, we moved back to Woodsboro. Like, you know, she didn't want to do that. She left, blah, blah, blah. Like, he needs to be in Woodsboro. Okay, we're doing the same thing.
Yep.
I don't believe he would have left in the middle of the night and like not spoken to her. And then they haven't spoken. And so she's like, why didn't you tell me all this then? I was like, I that's a good question.
Yeah.
Why?
I had a huge issue with that conversation. It feels incredibly inauthentic to me. Not only do I not believe it for these characters, but even its position in the film. Like, they meet up and they talk about, you know, like they're kind of catching up, and then they deliver this mound of exposition as though these are characters who don't know anything about each other. It felt really wrong to me.
Well, it also sounds like the last time they're ever going to speak to each other. And that's the issue. Like, the only reason this conversation happens and what the contents of this conversation is because they will not have another conversation together for the rest of his life.
Yeah, so. I much prefer the conversation he has with Sid on the phone, which we'll get to in a couple minutes. But that to me was more successful.
Yeah, I agree.
So another Easter egg, just in case you're paying attention, we do get a shot of Tatum's ashes on the mantle of this trailer.
Yeah, we do. We also, when he's watching the news, did you catch... It took me the third time to figure out what the fuck she was saying, but on the news show, she says something about stage intervention.
It's a bangs intervention.
Yes!
Oh, I caught that shit immediately.
Which, here's the thing. Okay, cool, it's in the movie. They talk about it a lot in these fucking press tours. I'm done with the bangs now. Like, it was fun in Scream 3 when we were all making fun of it, but now everyone makes fun of it. And I'm like, okay, let's put this joke to rest.
Yeah. Yeah, now that the movie is actually making fun of it, it's time to let it go, folks.
Yeah, exactly.
Also, a piece that ran wrong and or inauthentic to me, Gale would never, ever agree to appear on a morning television show that is simply called Good Morning with Gale Weathers. No, it would have a way catchier title.
Oh, okay.
No, this is like a hill I will die on. Like, Gale Weathers, as we know, would never go for such a basic fucking title. Come on.
Okay, that's fine. That's a nitpick, I think, but sure.
Of course it's a nitpick. This is what we do. I'm an entitled fan, Trace. I want everything to be my way. Don't talk down to me.
Fandom is about love, Joe.
Exactly. So this is when Sam and Richie arrive. They catch Dewey up, and he immediately offers them... I love that we get 2 sets of rules in this film.
Yeah.
So Dewey provides us with 3 rules to survive a stab film. The first is don't trust the love interest. The second one is look to your past. And the third one is the killer is probably a part of the victim's close friend group.
Well, he nailed that shit.
He sure did, to the point that even the killer says so.
Yeah.
Of course, Sam does not listen to any of this except for that last part. So they do ask Dewey for help, and he cites his 9 stab wounds, nerve damage, and limp as a reason why he will politely decline.
No, I will, as much as I'm like, oh, I don't believe like XXX about Dewey, I do love Arquette in this movie. And
I think he's great. Mm-hmm.
He's very funny. He's very great. Like, give me a reason I should talk to you. I'm Billy Loomis' daughter. That's a terrible reason for me to talk to you.
Yeah, I think you and I have probably been ungenerous to Arquette and maybe Dewey as a character over the course of the franchise. It's not that we don't like him, it's just that we think there's so much more exciting things happening around Sydney and Gale. But you're absolutely right. Arquette is delivering a fantastic performance in this, and he always has, but especially in this film, he is nailing these line deliveries.
Well, and that's also why I think, like again, we've never seen a rock bottom Dewey. And I like seeing this.
Also, that sounds like the name of a restaurant that I would like to go to.
But like, so even though, yes, I wish I could have seen his transformation of this, but I get why we can't get that in this movie.
Oh God, can you imagine if we had flashbacks? Ugh.
Oh yeah, that'd be terrible. But I like that we get to see this other side of him. It is unfortunate that it is the last we see of him.
Yeah, I mean, I think he gets his redemptive moments, and it's a good way to send the character out. But yeah, it's tough that we don't get to see him reconcile with Gale. I think that's obviously part of the reason that they do it this way. They want it to hurt more.
Well, and that's the thing. When you go back and watch Scream now, you're going to be like, oh, right. Remember how their story ends?
No.
But I do think that the aforementioned killer acknowledging that he got it right is like a posthumous win for Dewey, you know?
Yeah. Dewey was right all along. Nobody listened, but he was right. Mm-hmm. So I clocked it. These are probably a couple of minutes on or off, but at the approximately 42-minute mark is when we get a phone call to Sidney Prescott, who is played by Neve Campbell. Mm-hmm. And she is at location unknown. She is the mother of 2 girls, apparently young enough that she can cart them around in a stroller. And she has an unseen boyfriend or husband who she seems very happy with.
Wait. Oh, did you not catch this Easter egg?
It's Mark? Oh, fuck. Is that... What's his name?
Mark Kincaid. Patrick Dempsey.
Fuck off. That's it. This movie just dropped a star.
They don't say Kincaid, but she does say Mark, and that is the only Mark in this franchise.
I could not remember what name she said, and I couldn't find it in any research that I was doing, so I was like, I'm sure Trace will give me the name, but fuck, I never thought it was going to be
Trust
him.
me, the first time we watched this, the second she said Mark, my husband just goes to me and goes,
I mean, I guess in a way that is nice because it pays off Scream 3 in a way that we didn't get in Scream 4. Like, there is no mention of him.
No, I know. But the problem is that wasn't mentioned in 4. That's my only issue.
Well, you know what? Maybe things hadn't happened. And after the events of Scream 4, she decided, I'm going to try to make it work with him. We don't know.
For sure. It's just, it kind of like goes into this 4. It's not 4 erasure.
It's 4 erasure.
I mean, it's just, again, there's just no acknowledgement of this outside of the last time it happened was 2011.
Yeah, and that's honestly a big issue that I have with this film is it feels like we're giving very, very gentle nods to some of the other films, but our priority is only one.
But that's the Re-quel, Joe.
I'll get there. Okay, so we have this conversation. It's the usual Sid and Dewey thing where I love their scenes together. This is where a lot of the heart comes from, particularly with the legacy characters. Obviously, the line from the trailer, I am Sidney fucking Prescott, of course I have a gun. Banger, as always. The thing that worked the best for me and very much cued me that Dewey was going to die is when Campbell's voice catches when she tells him that she wants him to be safe right before they disconnect. She has it like, just be safe, okay? And you're like, oh, fuck. Oh, they're going to kill him for sure now.
Yeah.
And then Dewey follows that up by taking a breath of courage and notifying Gale of Ghostface return via text.
Oh, this was great. The smiley face emoji, I was like, oh yeah, like give me all this.
Classic Dewey. Great line delivery. Very funny. I liked it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so Dewey ultimately, I think based on Sydney's conversation, he decides to join Sam and Richie as we go to the Meeks Martin house. And do you want to talk about the shrine to Uncle Randy?
Oh, I mean, I can give two shits about that, but I do love...
Oh, you're just here for Heather Moderazzo?
Okay, but not only her being in the movie, but her one, like, her line is just like, ooh, suspects.
Randy would be so proud.
So I will tell you, and again, it's not anything to do with the film per se, but I was not wobbly on the film, but I was like, I was still having trouble acclimating to the film.
Yes, this is it.
Until this scene. This scene is when it clicked into place, and I was like, okay, cool. I'm buckled up. I'm ready to go. And it's 45 minutes into this hour and 54-minute movie. but I get it, right? I applaud the film for resisting like getting into legacy characters so early. Like, we do spend 40 minutes with a new cast before we even get to Dewey.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, because I'm right there with you. I realized on my second watch that it was his conversation with Sydney where I was like, here we are. Okay, this is where I feel like we're back in Scream. Yeah. And it's rough, right? This film is in an unenvious position of having to try to actually introduce characters that it doesn't plan to kill. Like Scream 4 kind of got away with it because those characters don't matter at the end of the day.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's talk about the scene, because really, if you want to get to the crux of what this film is about, Mindy is about to lay out the killer motivation right here and now.
This is fantastic. I love this scene.
I liked a lot of it. I do have another little nitpick. I'm going to be... oh my god, I'm the Richie of this conversation, apparently. As they're going around, they're talking about people's relationship to the original Stab characters. They're trying to figure out the connections. There's a mention of how Stab 8 was a disappointment, or the new Stab film was a disappointment. There's a mention, and it's meant to be a joke, but it's so fucking far off the mark that the most recent film was directed by the Knives Out director, and that would be Rian Johnson. And then later on, we will see footage of Stab 8, and it is light years away. You might even say Star Wars light years away from anything that Rian Johnson would ever put out. It is the absolute wrong choice of director to name drop here.
Yeah, so look, I didn't think about that, but you're right. I understand that, because what we see of Stab 8, like, no. Rian Johnson would not do that. At the same time, it's like, this is a film that honestly I feel like is commenting more on Star Wars Episode 8 fandom than it is on Scream fandom. Now, granted, I say that, and like, I mean, we know Scream fandom is a lot.
And occasionally toxic, yes.
But yeah, it's very much a comment on that. But yeah, I see what you're saying. I think it is a nitpick. It doesn't bother me to the point where I'm like, oh, that doesn't make any sense. Because the commentary does the work for me. Like, it works. But yeah, it would have been more effective if they made Stab 8 like really, really good.
Yeah,
because
it's supposed to be elevated, but then we see the shots of it, and it looks like way worse than anything Robert Rodriguez would have directed.
But the problem is, though, it's on the Dead Meat podcast video thing, and they're just making fun of it with all these weird sound effects. So we're just seeing a clip of it. I don't think
it's out of context.
It is out of context. So I get what you're saying, and I do think Stab 8 needs to be a legit. Well, that's the thing, because I think Star Wars Episode 8 is a fantastic film, and it's like one of my favorites in the franchise. Which, of course, some Star Wars heads will murder me over.
Yeah, you're about to get hate mail now.
Exactly, but like, yeah, I guess to really drive it home, they should have made Stab 8 look good to make the I get that, but whatever.
Yeah. It's Probably something we didn't need to spend 2 minutes on, but it was to prove a point where I'm like, you can't be savvy about all this stuff and then not have that follow through.
Right. No, I get that. Although that was really fun, though, because they have footage of the chrome face in, like, the trailers for the film to make it look like it's actually going to happen in Scream.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
nice.
yeah.
That's clever. Okay.
And there is an entire track on the soundtrack that's called Chrome Face.
Honestly, the people who were doing the marketing for this movie, they needed a raise because it was brilliant.
So, yeah.
Okay, so let's get to these rules. So this was apparently Jasmine Savoy Brown's audition. She had to do this monologue.
Oh, I believe it.
She's done interviews where she admitted, because she is a little baby queer, she had never seen Scream when she auditioned for this movie. The youth,
God damn it.
Trace, the youth.
So she aided Scream 4's box office failure.
More or less, yeah. She's to blame. But it worked out in her own interest. So, yeah. Okay, so Mindy basically goes into it. What we are dealing with is a re-quel. So this is not a reboot, and it's not quite a sequel. It continues a side story that maybe shouldn't exist, but does. It features a new cast, but also requires the inclusion of legacy characters. And then Sam is identified as the new lead. Sam protests because she's like, I'm in fucking fan fiction. So I have a question for you, because this is the part that I didn't really understand. They then say, well, that makes her most likely the killer. And I don't understand their rationale for saying that.
I think that's a commentary on Scream fandom wanting Sydney to be the killer in some of these movies. Because, I mean, we have had even some of our own previous guests on the show talk about how there's nowhere else for the franchise to go unless you make one of the three the killer.
Yeah, actually, now that you're saying it, I definitely remember a bunch of people saying, oh, it'll be Gail, or it'll be Dewey, or it'll be Sydney one of these times.
One thing, because here's the thing, this movie it coins a term, which is the re-quel. I actually like it, and I could see that catching on. Like, it was it was walking a line for me where I was like, oh my god, we're inventing this new term. Like, that could come across as really hokey and stupid, and it works for me here. I could see this catching on in, like, the public.
Yeah, and I actually feel like the list of films that Mindy outlines, like the films that have kind of tried to do it and maybe worked to varying levels of success, I was like, oh, those are actually all very applicable examples, minus Flatliners, because no one saw that.
No one saw that.
But I did really like the inclusion of Star Wars in here, because if you're talking down the line about the killer reveal, toxic fandom is most prevalent in Star Wars, and then I would also say RuPaul's Drag Race.
Oh, God, yeah.
Like, that to me, on the second go-around, that was a big cue. Hey, this is what we're interested in. Everything Mindy's talking about, but specifically that inclusion of The Last Jedi and Star Wars stuff, I was like, oh, okay, got it.
I'm telling you, whenever we get Scream Kills in 2 years, I am excited to see. I am excited to see how they comment on Halloween Kills' reception.
Ghostface dies tonight. A Ghostface dies tonight. I'm never going to do that joke again, I promise.
It's okay.
Until Halloween ends. Okay. So Sam does not take any of this very lightly, because they all kind of turn and say, that maybe makes sense. So she leaves. This is where we get the second of our 3 Billy appearances. And he basically says, hey, we should go find someone so that we can carve them the fuck up for doing this. Okay, whatever. And then we move to the Hicks household. So... I do have questions about the sheriff of the town already having her bottle of Chardonnay open and maybe drinking before she heads to go and pick up the sushi.
It's fine.
She's driving drunk.
Oh my god, I'm sorry, I'm not advocating for drunk driving, but no, she's fine. So here's my thing. I realize that we are nitpicking a lot and we're griping a lot.
We're having fun.
So an issue that I have with the overallness of this film is that there aren't really enough set pieces for me. And we have the Judy set piece and we have the hospital set piece. And I think those are the only two. And granted, they are also one after the other. But like nothing really matches the tension or suspense of, again, I'm going back to Scream 2 here, of the cop car, of the AV room. So I just...
So you're saying the best of the franchise doesn't get met in this sequel.
Yeah.
Okay.
I really like the hospital set piece. I really do like this Judy set piece. Not only for Judy's death, but also I love the playfulness with Wes when we get all the opening doors and stuff. Which, by the way, when I saw it in 4DX, there were 2 other groups of people in the theater. And the ones behind us were clearly like teenage girls or like early 20s girls.
Were they having a good time with it?
Oh, during the West, like door opening stuff, like they were losing their shit. It was really fun to listen to.
Mm-hmm. I think if you were going to look for a scene to shut critics up about how, ooh, this film isn't scary, you would point to the West scene because really we're doing a bunch of variations of the old mirror trick, but it really does work. Like there's a reason that has been included in a million horror films. And I think that this is the film having a bit of fun at our expense because it knows, oh, you listen to that music cue, you look for the door that's open, and no, we're not going to give it to you. And then when Ghostface does appear, it is so much more startling.
Well, even Judy's death, I mean, she gets killed in broad daylight on her front lawn.
Oh, so brazen.
Very brazen, very brutal. If I could tweak one aspect of this entire sequence, though, I would have Wes open the door to see his mother's body. I don't care if she's on the ground still or if Ghostface has strung her up in the fucking doorway. I would have liked it better because if he had seen her body, and then that's why he turns around and Ghostface is right there.
Yeah, because instead it's just, I closed the door because it had come ajar. And also, Ghostface is often very good at hiding bodies and moving them quickly and getting out of costume. There's a moment where Wes deliberately looks out and you can see the front walkway and you should be able to see either the body or at least a giant pool of blood, and there's nothing there.
Yeah, and it would be mean, obviously, to have him see her and then immediately die, but honestly, like that would be an emotional gut punch that I think would have really worked in this film's favor.
Agreed, yeah. Okay, so thinking about this maybe as one full set piece, were you surprised that we got Judy dying and then Wes dying almost immediately afterwards? Because I actually thought that Wes would be a character who makes it nearly to the end.
Yeah, no, I was surprised that he died immediately after. So that I did find surprising. His death is great with that knife going through his neck.
Oh, man, I fully cringed and sunk down my seat at that. I loved it. I actually think it's the meanest kill of this film.
It is, and it's the moment when you see the knife poking through his skin, and then it bursts through. It is so brutal, and I didn't even think about it because I was like, just watching the movie, but it was like, it does make sense because then we have the entire climax of this film being a party for Wes.
Oh, of course, yeah.
So...
yeah, a memorial that turns into a giant rager.
Yeah, but it's Wes Craven.
It's Wes Craven. Oh, I just got it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So Wes's death serves to literally, we are doing a party literally for Wes, the character, but also the entire climax is a party for Wes Craven.
Okay. See, you needed to say for Wes Craven because I was like, yeah, Trace, it's a party that ends a screen film. Got it.
But see, that's where the meta... It's, again, snake eating itself. Like, what is this?
No, it's very cute.
Yeah. But that's why he had to die so early.
Right. Okay. It's a shame because I actually think that Manette is one of... I don't want to say he's one of the better actors of this young group, but I think he's the kind of most grounded, relatable character. Because you mentioned earlier that you think Mindy, the Jasmine Savoy Brown character, is the most compelling because she's kind of the most outrageous. And
she's the most spunky.
She's more spunky. How do I say this without getting myself into trouble?
Try it.
I kind of think she's unlikable.
Oh, yeah.
Like, to the point of standoffishness. Like, her introductory scene in the quad, she literally says, oh, well, we don't know if Tara's dead yet. I mean, she could still die. And I was just like, this is our introduction to this character. You seem like a huge bitch right now. And I was just like, oh, this is off-putting. I mean, you're the new Randy, you're the new Kirby, but you're a huge bitch who doesn't care about people living or dying? Ugh.
Well, I think in her mind, Tara is dead, and she doesn't... I get what you're saying, and I know why you find her unlikable, but her flippant attitude towards everything I found very endearing, but I can understand why you would find that unlikable.
Admittedly, it may have had something to do with the fact that we recently read My Heart is a Chainsaw by Stephen Graham Jones, and the protagonist thinks that she is living in a movie, so she has very muted or understated reactions to really horrific things, and it kind of reminded me of how Mindy approaches everything like, well, if we're in this movie, if we're in a stab movie, you're
Right.
dead. I don't care. You're dumb. You don't follow the rules.
I mean, I think that Mindy, I mean, maybe this is too deep of a thought, but it isn't exactly an inaccurate portrayal of a horror fan or someone who is a Scream fanatic, you know?
Okay. Yeah,
I
I
don't
can
know.
see that for sure.
Nevertheless, though, an accurate portrayal doesn't necessarily mean likable.
Yeah, and as we've said so many times, you don't have to be likable to be an efficient character in a film. I don't think it's a deal breaker for this character because I do like a lot of the things she does later. I was just more off-put by that introduction, and particularly in conjunction with Wes, because he's talking about, oh God, I've got this embarrassing mom who happens to be the sheriff, but I've also got a taser, and, like he is ready for this movie in a different way than Mindy. And yet he's the one who dies very early on.
Yeah, Mindy thinks she's invincible, which, again, it's those critics of 4 that were like, well, these kids are acting like everything's fine and there's people getting murdered on them. Yeah, because they're fucking kids.
Yeah, they're teenagers who don't think that they will ever die.
Exactly.
Also, as you said off the top, this is the end of the lemon squares, but I was happy to get a quick shout out on the fridge.
Oh, I was too. And also, it's subtle, but like him doing play settings for 2 after she has been killed is also a good, like, oh God.
It hits you right in the feels.
Yeah.
Did you find it weird that we seem to have just this bevy of single mothers? Because we've got Tara and her mom, who we don't see, but she's on a trip.
Yeah.
And we've got Martha. And then we've also got Judy, and it's like the men are just not in the equation. Like we've got all these single moms sort of fending for themselves, raising these kids.
Yeah, and that was the thing, because I mean, obviously Wes would have been alive when 4 took place.
Yeah, I did the math there, and I was like, wait, so Judy was crushing on Dewey, but she clearly already had a child. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, it's not really. I mean, again, maybe she was already divorced by that point. Like, blah, blah, blah,
I'm
whatever.
not judging. I'm more interested in the fact. Again, it's like, okay, well, we're doing a gentle retcon. Like, this movie is doing. It's not even gentle. This movie's doing retcons with some pretty established things. So, like, okay, Judy had a child in Scream 4. Billy was fucking someone else while he was dating Sid and got that girl pregnant. Also, it's very weird that we never even address, like, hey, Christina, who are you? Are you a character?
I 100% thought, by the way, that Tara and Sam's mom was going to be a killer, and it was going to be a surprise, cameo reveal of some famous actress playing their mom.
Okay, put that in your pocket.
Yeah. Okay.
When we get to the end. Because I think we've got some hints for Scream 5.
Yeah.
Scream 6. Oh, my God.
Yeah, no, I get it. Scream kills.
Scream. Oh, fuck off. I can't.
Scream again.
No, stop it.
Scream some more.
Is that the one with time travel in it?
Well, no, but I do love that joke, though, where Richie's like, oh, the 5th one's where it goes off the rails, because we know it's the one with time travel, but also because we're watching the 5th one in the actual Scream franchise.
Yeah. Ironically enough, that's also the point that we're at. So this is where Sam touches base with Richie. He is, watching the YouTube reviews of Stab or Stab 8. And of course, that is the criticism. I love that they incorporated in the criticisms we all had about Scream versus Scream 5. And why don't they just call it Scream fucking 5? That's what we know it is.
Yep.
I didn't need to see the Dead Meat podcast. Sure, whatever, but...
Dude, and this is no disrespect to Dead Meat, I didn't know who they were, because I've never listened to them or watched them before.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that to be like, oh, they're not worth it. I didn't know. So I didn't know this was like some fucking Easter egg.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this is when we get the Kirby is a Woodsboro survivor interview with Bloody Disgusting, because, okay.
Sure.
Also, at the very bottom of that screen of the YouTube suggested videos is a fan video of like, did the real Stu Macher actually survive?
I'm telling you, I think that they are laying groundwork for future films with this.
We'll see.
I do think that we will get Hayden Panettiere back, and I do think that we will gently revisit something to do with that lost Scream 3 Stu Macher.
Oh, trust me, you don't think we're going to have a Kirby Reed, Mindy Meeks Martin team up? Come on.
Oh my God. Can we get like a Hulu spinoff with 8 episodes, please?
I do love that the picture of Hayden Panettiere is like the stock fucking photo of Hayden Panettiere.
And then she gets a special credit in the actual credits for the film. It's like, with special thanks to Hayden Panettiere.
Oh, I missed that. Good for you.
Okay, so we are up to approximately 65 minutes into the film. This is where Gale Weathers emerges onto the scene because sheriff, Judy, and Wes have been killed. So Gail comforts Sam. This is very much like, oh, you know that Gail has changed, because normally she would not give two shits about a sad-looking girl standing on the sidelines.
Here's the thing. And I love me some Courtney Cox. I love Gail Weathers. But she's like, her line is like, are you okay? It seems like you're having a moment. I'm like, y'all are standing outside of a crime scene where the sheriff is literally dead right there. Like, I feel like you can use context clues.
Yeah, I didn't love this. It definitely felt a bit like a line that Gail wouldn't actually say, but I had to go with, oh, well, it's been 10 years. Maybe she's a different person.
But then we get the, oh, well, she didn't really like me either. So then I was like, okay, cool. Gail's back.
Yeah, that was fine. I thought Dewey being flippant about Gail having a new chapter for her book, it felt out of character.
Oh, I don't, because, I mean, the thing is...
I mean, he's mad. Yeah, I get it. But he liked Judy. That seems like a shit thing to say about a person you enjoyed.
Yeah, he liked Judy, but he knows that Gail didn't like Judy.
Okay. I can take it.
And he was not expecting to see her. He hasn't seen her in God knows how many years, and so he...
At least a couple. That's what he told Sid.
Yeah, and so he's probably going... I mean, again, like, whatever emotions he's feeling right now, I buy him, like, being flippant or, like, aggressive at first.
Yeah. I think it was just this interaction between Gail and Sam. It's a little bit odd. And then, we go into this conversation with Dewey. It's so heavily expository, awkward in terms of the way that they're reacting. And then, this kind of like bitchiness. There was just some stuff here where I thought, I think this needed a bit more of a polish.
Yeah, I do wonder if there's any deleted scenes, but it feels a little, I don't even want to say rushed, but it is very quick.
Yeah.
But maybe it's just because I'm like, well, Dewey's about to die, so I just want longer. I want the scene to be longer.
That's true, because that's pretty much where we're going next. So Sam is here. She realizes that this other deputy who we've interacted with, I imagine he might come back in a future film with a bigger role.
Yeah. Is it Deputy Tam? Is that his name?
I think so. He's not listed on the Wikipedia page right now, but I'm sure that they'll add additional cast members as the film sort of spreads out. But she realizes that, if you're here, then there's nobody protecting my sister at the hospital. So she and Dewey jump in the car and they drive over there very quickly. We cut over to Tara. She is watching, here's another Easter egg, she's watching Dawson's Creek, Season 1, Episode 11, The Scare, which is the Scream parody. So this is a homage to both Kevin Williamson as well as the fact that Dawson's Creek did a Scream version. Ha ha.
Wait, but isn't, I'm sorry, it's Deputy Vincent. The actor's name is Chester Tam. But isn't Scott Foley in that episode?
He's invisible on this screen.
Yeah, so I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah, so people have speculated that Roman tried his hand at acting on Dawson's Creek before he became a director?
Okay.
Sure. Let's make that canon. It's a way to bring back, what's his name, Scott Foley in future episodes. We can just have him showing up in various Dawson's Creek episodes, maybe.
Oh, I'd be here for all of it. Absolutely.
Okay, this is when the lights go out at the hospital because, of course, Tara has been moved to a private floor. So there's basically nobody else around except for her security detail, and she discovers that person's body. Toot sweet. Trace, how much did you wince watching her try to negotiate this wheelchair with that fucking hand?
And it got even better when it started, like, the blood started getting on the metal part of the wheel. Because that's like, again, people recover from things in the Scream movies a little too quickly sometimes. And I love that we don't fuck around with Tara. Like, she is really out of commission for most of this movie. And that Jenna Ortega makes as much of an impression as she does with a character who is immobilized for 90% of her screen time.
Yeah.
It's a real testament to her power as an actress.
100% agree. Yeah. I saw you list Ortega's credits in other places. I haven't had the pleasure of seeing the fallout as of yet. But, I've always been intrigued by her as an actress. I always get a very young vibe off of her because she's so small and cute and you want to protect her. But then she delivers these big performances, like emotionally big performances. And Tara is really, she could just be a damsel in distress. Like, she is always in danger in every scene that she is in this movie. Yeah. And yet Ortega is selling the fuck out of this to the point where you are so afraid for Tara all the time, but not in a like, oh, she's helpless. It's like, oh, I really want her to survive.
Yeah, absolutely. So moving into this set piece, though, I mean, we have a death because the security guard is dead.
Yeah, whoever. Uh-huh.
So, okay, so this is when a lot of people are like, this is when I knew Richie was the killer, because he gets the arm slash and Ghostface doesn't kill him.
Right. Although you could argue Derek got that in 2 and he was not the killer.
Well, that's the thing, because it happens to Derek in 2 and it happens to Jill in 4.
Right.
I feel like we're overusing the arm slash as a thing.
Oh, for sure. But it's also, if you think about it, if somebody's slashing at you, you do put your hand up to protect yourself.
But here's the thing. Again, I honestly wasn't trying to predict who the killers were, so even though I was a little underwhelmed when they were revealed, I was never like, oh, I called that.
Right.
Also because I buy this scene because we do the whole pick which one wants to live or die.
Yes.
Which, by the way, the Scream TV show did in episode 3.
Oh, right. Okay. It's a classic power move, if you think about it.
It's great. I think it makes for a really good set piece. I mean, again, I prefer the Judy and West stuff, but like this is, I think, a really effective set piece. And I never was like, it's weird that Ghostface doesn't kill him because we have this game afterwards. Like, if we weren't doing the pick who lives, pick who dies, then yeah, I would have been really suspicious by that. But like, it didn't really cross my mind when I'm watching it.
Yeah, and really because the emphasis is on Ghostface trailing behind Tara to the point where I almost forget that Richie is even there. Like, he's knocked out. I'm not really paying attention. I'm very much caught up in the moment. I'm fascinated that you prefer the Judy West to this because this, for me, is the highlight of the film. I think it's great.
I think because I like Judy so much.
Okay, fair. Yeah. So this is all good. I love Sam doing the no because I was stalling for time.
Oh, yeah. That's again, because that's the first time we really get to see Melissa Barrera, like, be proactive.
Yeah, she's turning her fucking Sydney. She's turning the Sydney on here.
Exactly. So yeah, no, I mean, to say I like the Judy one more is not to say I don't like this sequence. I really do like this sequence.
Yeah. So this is all good. You know, we managed to get away from Ghostface. Dewey gets some shots in. We break some glass. And then he decides to do the stupid dum-dum move. I really didn't like this on the first watch because it felt... It's not quite the editing. The timing of it just felt off, where Dewey would not have hesitated. He would have just pulled the trigger and been done with it.
Yep.
So there's a beat before the cell phone distracts him and ends up costing him his life. But when I saw it the second time around, it went down easier. So I wonder if it was just that I was like, no, Dewey would have been better than this. But once you know it's coming, you just accept it and it's okay.
I mean, it is mean, because technically Gail is responsible for him dying because it's her phone call.
Technically, the person who's stabbing him in both the front and the back.
Oh, yeah.
Amber, you have some rage issues, girl.
Bro, to everyone who complained about anything with Emma Roberts, like, being too short to be in the Ghostface costume, like, this movie takes that in spades. This doesn't comment on it, which I was a little surprised by. But, again, that's something that never really bothers me, because I'm like, what? It's always a stuntman in Ghostface. Like, I don't care. My issue is that he did not pull the mask off before they even made it to the elevator. Like, he shot Ghostface Amber 3 times and doesn't take the mask off. And so it's it's a replication of in 2 when they crawl over Ghostface in the cop car and she's like, oh, wait, I want to go back and do it. So it's just a redux of that scene for me and not quite as effective, because with the car when I'm like, okay, like you want to run because you were like so close to touching this person that you need to get away. So I buy them not thinking, oh, let's unmask him right away. This one I didn't buy as much. And again, I realize a lot of our critiques are coming with, oh, do I buy this? Do I not buy this? Whatever. Like, unfortunately, that's what I'm doing. But that was it irked me. It bothered me less on rewatches. Yeah.
Almost everything bothered me less on the rewatch. And I think part of this is just when we know what's going to happen, it will be easier for us to process it. It's just hard in that moment where you're seeing it for the first time and you're thinking, that just, maybe not.
I am so glad you got to watch this twice.
Oh, thank God.
I really am worried about what this conversation would have been like had you only got to see it the one time.
Probably bitter disappointment on my side. Yeah. I almost texted you after the first round and was like, well, I didn't like that very much.
It was funny because after I saw it the first time, I went to a bar afterwards with Ari and Jenny, and we're talking about it. I was still kind of like, maybe it's like a 3.5 for me, whatever. But as we talked about it, as things were processing and sitting with me more, I was like, oh, you know what? The more I think about it, the more I like it. Matt Donato was like, oh yeah, we're writing my review. It went up a whole half star.
It sounds weird because it is relatively straightforward all the way through, but this is a film that the more you sit with it, the better it becomes.
I agree.
Yeah. Also, it's not the most iconic, but Ghostface literally telling Dewey it was a pleasure to kill him.
Ooh, I like that.
Fuck. Seriously, Amber, what is wrong with you?
Well, that's just because that's a trailer edit, because that line is said in the trailer when it's like, "Hello, Sydney, it's an honor." So I love that they replace that. That's actually Dewey's kill line.
Right. Yeah. And it's a great line.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, Trace, so we are hitting pause on that Patreon episode so that we can revisit a moment that I mentioned, and then I realized I never actually addressed in the episode. So we're here in the hospital sequence, and Dewey has gotten off his shot on Ghostface, except he hesitates to pull the trigger, and this is what ultimately leads to his demise.
Right.
But I wondered, what do you think this film would have been if we had have actually revealed... Oh, okay, this is, what's-her-face, Amber.
Amber, yeah.
What if we had have just killed her and revealed, okay, this is the killer, and then the movie pretends like there isn't a second one for a little bit, but then maybe the killings resume or something like that? Like, do you think they could have done one killer reveal here instead of doing them both at the end?
I do think they could have done that, actually. However, I mean, I don't think anyone would have been like, okay, cool, that's it. That's the only killer. I think we are trained to know that there are usually two killers in this franchise, because 4 out of 5 of these films have 2 killers.
Indeed. The question is less, are there going to be 2, as opposed to, will there be more than 2?
Exactly. But that being said, though, I think... Because I do think that this film plays things relatively safe, and that's given, Dewey's demise. Because I think that's something that a lot of us expected walking into this film. So it's a big swing, but also it's a safe play at the same time.
Exactly.
I do think, if we had revealed Amber here, even if she gets like, they shoot her, they pull the mask off, and she's like, dying words like, rah, 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 fandom, blah, blah, blah.
Exactly.
That would have been a really good subversion of the formula that the Scream franchise has established. And I will confess, I'm hoping we get something more like that in Scream 6. I get why we don't get it here.
Right.
But yeah, it also does it makes Dewey look a little dumb, right?
Yeah, because definitely the first time I watched this, I couldn't understand why he would hesitate, because there's no reason for Dewey, after how many of these interactions with Ghostface, to say, well, I'll just think about it for a second and then allow myself to be murdered. So it's frustrating, particularly for people who like Dewey as a character, to have him go out making a bit of a lapse in judgment. But yeah, more to your point, I do think it would have been a fun subversion of the formula for these films to say, okay, we dealt with one of them, but is that the end? Like, as an audience, we would have known it would have continued. But for the characters within the film, they could have kind of hit a soft reset and then played with that tension again. Yeah,
I agree. But then you're walking into the area of, okay, well, then we're ahead of the characters from the get-go. So, I mean, look, do I wish Dewey had gone out? Because I don't even mind the fact that Dewey went out, but do I wish he had gone out in a slightly different way that didn't make him look as silly? Yes, absolutely. And I would have loved to have seen what this film would have been if we did a killer reveal halfway through the film. I think that would have been a really clever idea, but it would have to have been done well, because you lose one killer, you lose a chunk of what makes the climaxes of these films so effective. However, as we will discuss later in this episode, I do think that this climax is a bit rushed, so maybe it could have used some breathing room and only had one killer in that finale.
Yeah, I mean, we're speaking hypothetically, because of course that's not what we get. And Amber's reveal at the end, as you'll hear us discuss shortly, is pretty fucking good. So I don't know that I'd want to lose that. It's just more, sometimes I feel like the franchise's tendency to stick to formula can actually hurt it, because we're 5 entries in.
Right. And of course, this little tidbit that we're sneaking in here, we're recording after having seen a lot of the marketing for Scream 6, and so we have more of an inclination of the departure that the sequel's going to take. And so, again, fingers crossed, hoping that we're getting those subversions in that film. We don't get them in here, and that's okay, but...
That's okay.
It is what it is.
All right. Well, thank you for going on this tangent with me. Let's resume the Patreon episode as it was.
All right.
So this is where we get some slow-mo of Gail crying. Sydney arrives, so she shows up at approximately the 72-minute mark.
Woo!
Yeah. So, if you're thinking about it, I feel like we're only getting a little bit more Sydney in this film than we got in 3.
Yeah, but it makes more sense here, at least.
Oh, I think she's more efficiently used.
Yeah.
I also think that they were able to judge based on how much they would have her for, as opposed to in 3 where it was like, oh, Jesus Christ, somebody try to work out the schedule for us, please.
Yeah, well, I mean, but that's the thing. You can tell this was written where, like, again, we're focusing on the main cast. Like it's just like that person who read the script that told me about it ahead of time said. Like, they are supporting players, and they are necessary for the script that is being used, but, like, they are supporting players.
Yeah, very much so.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the point where Sam and Tara and Richie decide that they're going to leave town. Did you laugh at the, you're so high right now?
Yeah, I thought that was really sweet.
It's cute.
Because this is a moment of, like...
It's levity before we get into the climax.
Well, between the two sisters, because we haven't had this between them yet, because they've been estranged for so long.
Yeah. And this is kind of the moment, too, where you get the sense that it's now water under the bridge. Like... Yeah. Tara's going to forgive her. They're going to try to make it work. And we decide, let's get the fuck out of town, because that's a thing no one ever does.
And I'll tell you, I was really buying Rich's bullshit up until this point, where he's like, can we get in the car because we never have to see these people again? I was like, all right, like...
Yeah, because he's pushing it so hard.
Well, and maybe that's the thing. Maybe they're pushing it so hard that people were like, oh, they're pushing it too hard. But...
How hard is too hard? You decide.
You know what, though? What we always wanted? We wanted Sydney and Gale teaming up, and it sucks that it took Dewey dying to get this, but watching Campbell and Cox, it's not even for that long of a time, but watching them play off of each other, watching them work together, was a very satisfying moment for me as a fan.
Yeah. Okay, so now I want the Netflix spin-off of these two just off solving crimes together.
It was just like, watch your tone, new girl.
Yeah. I like that Sam actually gets some opportunities to spar a little bit with this because, especially if you're not a fan of what Barrera has been doing up until this point, you actually get more of a sense of the character's resilience. And I know we actually have Sydney say, oh, she's, feisty tough. Or she's strong or tough or something. But I like that she says, so you want me to stick around and commit murder with like the OG final girl and the morning show lady?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay, she's got some backbone to her.
No, I thought this was all great, and Sydney putting the tracker on her car. I mean, like, again, this was all working very well for me.
Yeah, because we also know that we're heading into the climax, so it's like, okay, we need to get to some kind of party, or we need to get to some kind of group gathering, and I love that we've actually got some agency from all of these female characters.
Yes!
No one is just accidentally showing up in the wrong place and wading into a bloodbath. It's like...
Well, that's like, we talked about in Scream 4 how much we love it when Sydney answers the phone and she's like, what do you want? Because she's so over it. Yeah. We get a variation of that, but she's not over it. She's just like, go fuck yourself, Ghostface. Like, I hate you.
I also love that she calls them derivative and then just hangs up. Like, it's so funny.
The same house? Jesus Christ. Yeah, all that was great.
I do enjoy the line reading of the address is 123 no fucking way.
I mean, this is all very, very fun. And yeah, like you said, you feel you're ramping up to the climax. So, and again, we've got Sydney back. We've got Gale back. Like, this is all coming to a head. And this is really, really good. Yeah.
Know who else we have back, Trace? All of the teen characters we haven't talked about for like 40 minutes.
Yes. And again, it does play better for me the more I watch it, having them essentially be absent for Act 2.
Okay.
But it is an issue, I think, going into this climax.
Yeah, they just have to kind of hit the accelerator a little bit hard to remind everybody, okay, what's the conflict? Let's get everybody into position. So, we touch base with Chad, and he doesn't want to have sex with Lib because he doesn't know if he can trust her. So then she leaves, and then he has to decide, okay, I'm going to go after her after the fact. And, there's some cute sibling rivalry sparring kind of stuff that the film gets some good mileage out of, because I think Savoy Brown and Gooding are really good at this kind of stuff. Like, you can feel that relationship between the two of them. This is where the Liv stuff comes on just a little too strong. I like it for the actress because she's finally getting to do some interesting things, but also it feels very lean into the red herring more so that we think you're a psycho.
Yeah, no, this is when I was pretty much convinced that she was not the killer, but I agree. Like, it was fun to get to see her do something before she's unceremoniously killed off in a few minutes. First,
we have to get Chad's stock and slash. So I was admittedly a little disappointed that the film doesn't try to do anything with its tech. We've got the home security thing with Tara at the beginning, and then we've got this Find My Fam app, and I was a little underwhelmed by the Find My Fam thing.
Well, but I think it's also because this is a very short sequence. Again, like, this isn't a set piece to me. Like, this is like...
Oh, this is a set piece, Trace.
But it's not a set piece with a capital S, you know? Like,
oh, okay.
like, and also, were you not like, dude, throw your fucking phone?
Oh, God. The minute he started trying to, like, paw at it with the bloody fingers, I was like, dude, that is not going to work. Like, take it from somebody who has had a non-receptive cell phone cover for, like, a couple of years. Like, that thing is useless. Just get rid of it. And I was glad that he does. I was glad that it doesn't end up killing him because he should have plotted his escape a little bit better, but...
Well, but I wish there were a bit more of a cat and mouse with this app, because I like the idea of this app a lot, but I don't think the film uses it to its full advantage. I mean, again, imagine a audio-visual room sequence with a Find My Fam app.
Yeah, exactly.
So... give them a hedge maze. Give Amber's house a hedge maze.
Oh my God, give me a hedge maze every time. I think the other issue that I have with this, you're right, it's a little too short. It could have been more cat and mouse, which we almost never get with male characters anyway in slashers.
Right.
But I do have a bit of a criticism that Bentinelli, Olpen, and Gillette, they don't shoot this sequence all that well, particularly the first part where Ghostface attacks. I actually thought that he got stabbed in the groin because it's really unclear based on the way that they stage and shoot this.
Yeah, it's pretty fast. I mean, again, my biggest gripe with this scene, outside of the fact that, it's too short, is that I don't believe for 1 second that this character would survive.
Oh, no. The minute you see the blood coming out of the femoral artery, that dude is dead.
If it was femoral, he would be dead. Like there's no coming back from that.
It is gushing between his hands.
I'm aware, but the fact that he's not dead is like, there's no way they hit the femoral artery.
Well, there's no way he survives this because he then gets stabbed about 5 more times.
Oh my God, I know. So the second and third times I watch it, I'm like, oh, maybe it's not as bad as I remember. No. Like he gets
rough.
He gets brutalized in this scene.
Also, if we're meant to believe that this is still Amber because Richie is in the car, she fully takes a candlestick to the face in this scene. Shows up with no black eyes, no marks on her face later.
Doesn't Tara punch her in the face in the opening scene?
Literally everybody gets at least a couple punches in.
Yeah.
It's pretty funny.
Weird content. This is way back in the first scene, but like when they send the video of Ghostface like standing outside Amber's window, I was like, well, that doesn't make any sense because Richie wasn't there. But I guess it's a pre-recorded video. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Honestly, even though I think Amber is the less successful of the two villains, when you start to think about all the kills and prep work she had to do before Richie even arrives, she's the better Ghostface.
Again, I have things to say.
Okay. So Tara, Sam, and Richie arrive at the party, and I do love this scene where Sam is like, okay, we need to get these kids out of here, and Richie just starts going, okay, this is now a murder hotspot, get the fuck out. And again, this is the part where if you're doing the drinking game, get the fuck out becomes Blackout Drunkville. But I do enjoy the part where he's saying, you're welcome, I'm saving your life, you're welcome, I'm saving your life, as all the kids exit.
No. The drinking game that will fuck you up in this movie is you take a drink every time Ghostface is trying to stab someone and they are holding him off and like they're trying to push back on the knife.
Oh, right. And maybe getting a kick in.
I think everyone does that in this movie.
It's a lot. Yeah.
Not a knock. It's just an observation.
Mm-hmm. I do enjoy, too, that they get into this party, and the goal is to get Tara's inhaler, because it's a prescription one, so she needs to get up into Amber's room. They enter this party and just immediately disperse. You're like, what are you doing, you idiot?
But you know what it reminds me of?
Mm-hmm.
Well, where's my phone? I didn't text you, Trevor.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So
everybody just separate, of course. Yeah, so Richie tries to get directions to find beer from Mindy, and they have a funny exchange about, I'll be right back, and she's like, oh, you're so dead.
Oh, we skipped over, I mean, it's not a really important scene, but it's when Amber goes to get the beer from the fridge and Mindy follows her. Like, again, it's just another scene with Amber, because up until this point, we've had the quad scene, we've had the Re-quel scene, And we've had her, like, in the hospital when she kind of spars with Richie. But yeah, like, at least we get another scene with Amber. And I think it's the film trying to be like, look, it's not Amber, y'all.
Yeah, and maybe it's Mindy. I was actually very confused by this. This was the point where I finally figured out that Amber and Tara are not a couple. But I actually feel like there's a lot of sexual chemistry between these actresses in the beer scene.
Yeah.
I also got very distracted because it looks like there's a Ghostface costume on the wall of this basement. And I was like, oh, is she actually going down there so that she can put on the costume?
Well, and because this is the basement, not the garage.
Yes.
Okay.
Because important to note, this is Stu Macher's house. We've seen the garage because that's where Tatum gets killed.
Well, I was like, where's the garage? But then they kept saying basement. I was like, I really wanted to see that garage.
Yeah, this is how you know Wes Craven didn't direct it, because the geography suddenly doesn't make sense anymore.
Well, but that's because the movie is banking on you already knowing the geography.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And I'm willing to bet that either the garage or the basement is maybe from a different set and not the house that, you know, they do all the Scream Airbnb shit in.
If we have a listener who stayed at the Airbnb, let us know.
Yeah, tell us. So Sid calls Sam because, yes, they realize, shit, you have entered Stu Macher's house. What the fuck are you doing? This is Mindy's big scene where she mimics her dead uncle's movements from the first Stab film, and then she proceeds to get attacked by Ghostface. And Sam rescues her, but Mindy passes out from blood loss. Everybody converges because we're having a cacophony. And then Amber clears things up by blowing Liv's head off.
So I did like this part where she's like, I'm not the killer. I know. And just fucking...
Yeah.
But then I was like, oh shit, yes. But then I had the deflated where I was like, oh, but it's Amber.
Yeah, it's very, we all go a little mad sometimes, bam, which I appreciated. Yeah, I didn't really know how to feel about it because we can't even take a moment because everybody scatters after this again. So you're just kind of like, oh, okay, it's Amber. I guess we'll find out why later because it's a Scream film, so we always do.
But it does lead to this fucking great moment when Sid and Gale walk up.
Okay.
Oh, you didn't like it?
No, I don't like this.
Oh, man, I love this.
So I love their exchanges with one another. You know, the moment from the trailer where they talk about whether or not they're ready. No, never. And then I love the, what do you think? Oh, it's a trap. But I hate the fact that Amber is a good enough shot to nail Gale in the stomach in one, and Sydney, who I'm going to go out on a limb and say has been practicing with a gun for many fucking years, can't hit the broadside of a barn.
That's fine. I'm fine with that. I don't care.
Of course you are. You're fine with all of it. I'm just more like,
yeah.
I like the trap, but I don't like, oh, we shot Gale and Gale's out of commission because Amber is a perfect shot.
I do love that Gale gets shot in the same place she was shot in Scream 2.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but yeah, also Amber's really bad acting. Oh my god, he stabbed me!
I mean, she is a legitimately terrible fake out because her scenes in the kitchen are also hella unconvincing where you're just like, Amber, girl, you're a killer first and an actress like dead last.
Oh, yeah. No, like, please, it wasn't me. I did that.
I was radicalized by subreddits.
Oh my god. Okay, so let's get to because we'll wait and talk about this when we get to the Richie reveal. But so yeah, Sydney walks inside.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so she walks inside. She gets a call from Ghostface. This is when she says she has no time for this shit. She hangs up. She's also going around methodically shooting every door because she has said, if you are in here, show yourself. You've got 5 seconds. Fucking love this. This is Sydney in full control. She's the Sydney that we all know and love. It's great because, you know, we haven't had a ton of Sydney in this film.
Right.
So to see her just like fully, it's great.
Yeah. Agreed. And do you think it is Amber or Richie talking to her on the phone?
Oh, I think it's Richie because you can see the phone on the ground after she opens the door and he's like, oh, you shot me.
Yeah. I mean, I know he says, oh, I'm not Amber, I'm the other one. But like, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so this is when Ghostface tackles her. They go over the railing. This looks like it really hurts. So I appreciated that they don't just get up and start scrapping for the gun. And we get to see Richie sort of stumble down the stairs. It's very, he's Randy because he's hobbling around. He's going to help. And then this is when Sam shows up and gets stabbed and boom, second killer reveal.
But it matches Billy, right? Like he's walking down the stairs. He's actually been hurt, whereas Billy was not. So, yes, I like the meta approach where he's like, oh, I know, it's a bummer, it's me, isn't it? Like, mirroring the audience's thoughts.
Yeah.
So, do you want to talk motive first and then issues, or do you want to talk issues and then motive?
Let's walk people through the issues, and you can interject at the end. So Richie and Amber move everybody into the kitchen, and they deliver this speech. So they clarify that they found each other on the Stab subreddit, and they bonded over their shared hatred of the most recent Stab, but presumably also some of the other inferior sequels.
Yeah, they said all the sequels are shitty.
Yeah, except the first one, which is like, okay.
There's also, because there's a line where they say Sid is in all the Stab movies, and I was like...
Yeah, except the most recent one, and it's like, bullshit.
Okay, but remember in 4 when they're like, oh yeah, like the first 3 movies are based on Sidney Prescott, but then she threatened to sue them if they use her story, so then like they started doing other stuff. So
presumably she's still in it, but they're not her stories anymore.
I guess, yeah, okay.
Maybe she's Jigsaw and she's dead, and they just bring her back for like the occasional like autopsy scene or something.
Maybe.
Okay, so Richie then angrily states that no one takes the hardcore fans seriously. He asks what's toxic about fandom. They talk about how they're committed to getting the franchise back on track by providing real-life material for a new film in which Sam will be the key ingredient. Because she is Billy's daughter, she will be a perfect new villain, because that is what the Stab franchise has been missing.
Yeah.
They name-drop Jamie Lee Curtis in Halloween, and they say that in addition to Sam, they also needed to have a couple of legacy characters come back to be killed so that we can raise the stakes.
So, I do love this. I love the monologue. I love the motive. I think all that's fine. It literally feels like they went to Twitter, pulled tweets, and put them in the script.
Yeah, I like it more the more I sit and think about it. I actually really like this idea, like the idea of toxic fandom, the idea that people want to be taken seriously and that they do get radicalized. It's a funny line when Amber says it, but I 100% believe that people have been radicalized on social media because we've seen it in the pandemic on a bunch of conspiracy theories. What I don't like is the delivery from either of these two actors. It's too Roman-esque. It's not amped up enough.
See, for me, it's too fast. Like,
okay,
a big issue I have with this climax is that I don't think it's long enough.
Right.
I wish we were... I feel like they're rushing through their lines a little bit.
Okay, I can see it.
Here's an issue I have. Okay, so their whole motive is... They're like, oh, Hollywood's been getting this franchise wrong. These sequels are all fucked up. So we're gonna like give them a good idea like to make a new sequel, right?
Yeah, it's like a back to basics.
Right. Here's the thing. Since the events of Scream 4, there has been one Stab movie that has been made, which is Rian Johnson's Stab 8.
Yeah, and it has apparently only recently come out because it seems like it's fresh.
Right. Which means the events of Scream 4 were not adapted into a Stab film. Why would these two people think that Hollywood would adapt this idea?
Yeah, again, it's the problem with erasing so much of Scream 4 from this film's conversation. We don't have an understanding of, like, what was the lasting impact of Jill's massacre? Because you would 100% think that they would either adapt it or that they would have had a reason for not adapting it.
Yeah. Exactly. And so, I mean, I get them because I'm like, okay, well, whatever. Maybe they're just because it's kind of like the Mickey thing, right? Like, I'm gonna go, I'm gonna get caught, I'm gonna blame the movies, and you're like, okay, well, you're a fucking like crazy person, like,
yeah, exactly.
So I can maybe buy that, but I'm also just like, okay, but y'all as super fans know that the events of Scream 4 were not adapted into a film, so why would you think Hollywood would adapt this story into a film unless they're just so fucking like hubristic? Is that the right word? I don't know. Where they're like, well, this is such a good idea. Hollywood will do this because we're fucking geniuses because it's coming from the fans.
Which I think is very funny because if you look at the events of this film and they're kind of like so-called revolutionary, like get the franchise back on track, I'm like, I don't think that this would make for the most exciting, like, this is really just a rehash of one. Like, what they're proposing is just to remake the first Stab film.
They're proposing a Re-quel.
Yeah, but you're like, but that's not a very good idea. Like,
but no, not based on the conversation we had about Re-quels with Mindy. Like, is like that is the only way to revive a franchise is to do a Re-quel. So I get what you're saying. We're like, well, that's not very exciting. But like, based on what this movie is saying, it is the best idea.
Yeah. coming back to the reasons why, and this is pure speculation because there's nothing in the film to support it, I wonder if that's why we have the line from Gail at the end of the film where she's like, well, I'm not going to write about these fuckers. They can die in anonymity, or they can rot in anonymity. Right. I wonder if because Jill was eventually revealed to be the killer and she wanted to do it for fame, if Hollywood just said, we're not adapting that.
Maybe so, but we don't know.
Yeah, no, it's the kind of thing where you're like, one line could have explained it all. Like, they never adapted the 2011 stuff because it was considered poor taste.
Yeah. So, and here's my other main issue, and this is personal to me. And I'm like, I know it's not everyone's gonna feel this way.
Cool. I'm not bothered in advance.
No. I mean, I think you're going to agree with me. So whenever talking about like ranking killers and whatever, like climaxes, I gravitate towards 2 and 4. And right. I'm like, why is that? Well, we have these wonderfully camptastic performances from Laurie Metcalf and Emma Roberts.
Right.
But also because the sidekick killer, who's kind of like the first, oh, that kind of sucks, it's that person, is killed off pretty quickly. And then we have the spotlight on the solo killer left behind. This doesn't apply to 3 because it's one killer. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't apply to 1 because Billy and Stu are, like, they share the spotlight. And it works in partners. 1. And I get that that's why we are doing the same thing here. Like,
yes,
Amber and Richie are the new Billy and Stu. Mm-hmm. The problem is I don't really like that they're sharing the spotlight because I feel like they take away from each other.
Agreed. Yeah.
So, granted, in a normal, if this were Scream 2 or Scream 4, Amber would be killed very quickly, and Richie would be the mastermind. And that would make more sense because we've had so much less time with Amber, and I could chalk it up to, okay, cool, like she's the Mickey or she's the Charlie of the movie, which she's probably closer to Mickey because Mickey probably has the same amount of screen time that Amber does in this movie.
Agreed. Yeah. Yeah, I think that actually makes a lot of sense because part of the Amber reveal is that she hasn't been present enough. So when you see her, you're like, oh, I barely remember you because you're barely in this movie.
Right.
But then even when we get to this, it still feels like she's taking a lot of her cues from Richie. But then you think, but Richie hasn't been here doing most of this hard labor, right? Like, in a way, Amber should be the big ghost face because she has been plotting this. She's been the person on the ground. Like, she's boots on the ground killer. And I don't know. Yeah, like, I just wish something about this was bigger, or maybe you're right. Like, one person got to do the spotlight.
I get what you're saying, but also it's Scream 2. Mrs. Loomis was not doing the majority of those killings. She was the mastermind. She was the big one. But Timothy Olyphant, Mickey, was the bulk. He was the muscle. He was the one killing almost everyone in Scream 2. So again, it goes to that as well. So
you got to pick one, is what we're saying.
Yes. Yeah, no, 100%. So it works in Scream, the first movie, the original film. Because I think it was such a surprise. But I don't think Billy or Stu take away from each other in that film. I do think that Richie and Amber take away from each other in the climax of this film. And this climax is not a failure to me. I like this climax a lot, but it feels a little slim to me.
Yeah, I agree. It is one of the things that I feel is just less satisfying about the film. And because it's the end... Yeah. Like, at the end of the day, we've got this, and then we also have the return of Skeet Ulrich, which is Billy, Ghost Dad, providing sage advice on how to survive this. There's just a couple of beats in here where I think, well, that didn't end on the strongest of notes.
That being said.
Yeah, let's get to the good shit, shall we?
Watching Gail and Sydney throw this bitch across the kitchen island.
Yeah.
I love that it's hand sanitizer, by the way, because they're filming during a pandemic.
Yep.
And lighting her on fire. Now, I will say, I liked this. This actress, Mikey Madison, I know her primarily from the TV show Better Things. She plays the most horrendous older daughter of Pamela Adlin's lead character. I forgot that she's also in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood playing one of Manson's acolytes, and her character is dispatched in the exact same way. So, in the sense that she has the shit beaten out of her and then she's lit on fire.
Right.
My friend who saw it with us the second night we saw this was so mad because he was like, I hate it. I literally, as like, okay, I pegged her as the killer 40 minutes in. I hate that she's now going out the exact same fucking way that her character did in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I get it's an homage. It didn't bother me. Like, it bothered him a lot. I didn't really care.
Yeah, I brought up a bunch of petty shit, but I'm not expecting the Scream franchise to pay attention to how their actors have been dispatched in other films.
Oh, see, I think they knew and it was an homage.
No, I absolutely don't think so.
Okay. Listeners, give us a vote.
No.
But nevertheless, letting Gail be like, you killed my best friend, having Gail go, fuck you, and just shoot her, like,
yeah,
all of this was great. I wish it was longer.
I can see that because I think it's just such a great fucking sequence.
Yeah.
I think the other reason it stands out is because people don't die this way in Scream films.
Yeah.
Right? Like, people get shot or people get stabbed. Most of the time, like, we're getting one or the other. So to see somebody literally go up in flames is so exciting. And it also feels like, okay, well, you're bringing us back to the kitchen. It's Scream 1 again.
Oh, yeah.
It's nice that they found a way to distinguish this. Like, it's literally the exact same kitchen. So it's fun that they're using it in a different capacity because, yeah, like, that stove is right fucking there.
Yeah, I agree. So she's done. And also, I guess it would have made more sense to, or not made more sense, but it might have been cooler if it was like, oh, Richie and Amber had discussed beforehand, like, okay, Amber, you get the legacies. I'll take the new ones.
Right. I think it makes sense in my mind because he has a relationship to Sam. We should actually also note that at one point he says the most fucking incel-y line I have maybe heard in a film, where he's like, you were easy to find in Modesto and you were easy to fuck, but I guess that's what sexually liberated women want nowadays or something like that. And I was like, holy, we are intersecting now toxic fandom with incel culture, and it is damning.
Honestly, go read comments on not just Megan Navarro's Bloody Disgusting review of Scream.
Thank you, I will not.
But any Scream article that's come out since the movie premiered and people have seen it.
Oh, is Ghostface awoke now?
Well, the comments, though, it's so funny because, and these people get it, like, they don't like the motive, but I'm like, but you're literally...
You are the motive, you jackass.
You're playing, even after seeing this movie, you are still feeding into the reason this motive exists.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, message boards, right there, toxic fandom, prime example.
So, because you mentioned, like, you don't think that they delivered the lines well enough. So, because I do like Jack Quaid, at least in his final encounter with Melissa Barrera. I do enjoy all of this, and goddamn, watching her stab the fuck out of him. So good.
We kind of get a repeat of this Wes kill where she stabs him through both cheeks first, and then she gets on top of him, which I love because it feels like, you can call me on this, it feels like her reclaiming not just her agency, but also like a sexual agency, because it looks like a sexual position when she straddles him.
Oh, yeah.
And then she just fucking, like, this is the most aggressive stabbing we see in the entire film. She is covered in blood. And then when he once again reiterates, you're messing with my ending, which maybe this is the callback to Scream 4, because Jill says the same thing to Sydney. She just leans in and slits his throat.
Yes, and I have the line here. He says, what about my ending? And she says, here it comes.
Yeah, which, here it comes.
Yeah, exactly. And again, the thing is, like, I mentioned this earlier because, like, she has her projection of Billy point her to the knife. And again, I can see someone watching this and being like, what the fuck is this film doing?
Yeah, I didn't love it. Because you could have just gotten away from it. Like, you could have just had her look and see the knife. You didn't need to have Billy there to guide her.
I agree, but then again, it's Billy in quotation marks. So this to me is her realize, like, she's coming to terms with her past, with her history, with her bloodline, and she's making amends with her version of Billy, which is why he's helping her. So it's not Billy helping her, obviously, but it's like, it's all this baggage she's felt guilty about, that has fucked up her life, that led her down a drug path. Like, it's her making amends with that. And so it's like this representation of that just happens to be taking the form of Billy. So I get it. But because it's literally Skeet Ulrich, it's just kind of like, oh, like, it muddles it a little bit, but not enough to where I'm like, it doesn't work for me.
Yeah, it doesn't work for me. And
that's fine.
I think I would have preferred a different way of doing it if it has to be in here at all. Now, I will say, with all of this in mind, if we jump to this moment where she kills Richie, and then she does the iconic Ghostface cleaning of the blade.
Oh, yes. Oh, I loved that.
But here's the thing. So all of this stuff with Dad and I am the daughter of a serial killer, and then she does a Ghostface move, set up for Scream 5.
Yeah.
She is going to be killing people. 6. Damn it, I keep saying 5. Yeah, set up for Scream 6. She potentially will be a killer in that film.
So, well, that's the thing, yeah. So it ends, like, they all make amends. Gail's gonna write a book about Dewey, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, somehow both the twins are still alive. Okay, movie.
Okay, but I agree, but when we get the thumbs up, when Mindy's like, hey, yes, it doesn't make any sense, but it's really fun.
It's great because I love both those actors and I absolutely want to see them in more films. I love Tara being like, can we go to a different hospital this time?
That was the thing too, because I was like, why? This hospital really is the emptiest hospital, but at least they get away with it here when they're like, oh, we're going to put you on a private floor, which again doesn't make any sense. Why would you put her on a private floor?
Yeah, isolate her more so she's easier to kill.
So, okay, yeah, we have Mindy, we have Chad, we have Tara and Sam.
And then Sydney and Gail.
Right. But here's the thing. I can envision a Scream 6 without Sydney and Gail, and I think that might be where we're heading.
Yeah, it would be interesting because I think that legacy franchise fans would be disappointed not to see those two characters because this is a fine ending for both of them, right? There's the promise that Sydney will go back to Mark and her 2 daughters.
Yeah.
And also that Gail's going to write this nice book. Like, she's finally going to get back to writing, which we heard earlier is the thing that truly makes her happy. And it's going to be about Dewey, which was the other thing that truly made her happy. That's nice. It doesn't have the same capper as either Scream 3 or Scream 4. So I could envision being a little disappointed if this truly is the last we see of them.
Well, but that's unfortunate because this is... Oh, but we didn't mention the line of how's that torch? Or enjoy that torch.
Oh, I like that line a lot.
That's fantastic. Fantastic. But that's the thing, because 4 was like, no, we are holding on to the past.
We are not passing the torch.
Yeah, this one is a passing of the torch. So yeah, while I agree it doesn't have the same kind of like satisfying capper, it does have the same air of like, well, we are getting older.
Yeah.
And things change.
And you could parachute them in. I mean, I think I heard somebody joking, oh, why don't you just have one of them Skype in if you need like a little sage advice? You know, you could do what Randy Meeks in case of this break glass, play this video. I could see them doing it though. I don't want it either, but I could see them saying, oh, well, the door is open because these 2 characters are still alive. We can bring them back if we want to.
But see though, for the next one though, we're going to call in the expert and maybe we think it's Sydney, but Kirby pulls up.
Jesus, yes.
I don't... You know this. I hate theorizing, especially now because the movie isn't even announced yet. We don't know if we're getting a Scream 6 at all. Like, I have avoided so many fan theories for this film because I'm like... Well, because again, you have 100 fan theories. One of them's going to be right.
Oh, sure.
I don't want that in my head at all.
No, and what's super fun is that we're releasing this on Patreon, so it's going to sound normal now, and by the time that main feed listeners hear it in a year, we're going to be so wrong about all of this fucking shit. Oh, yeah. It's going to be great.
No, but so yeah, I can see them. Oh yeah, because that's something people have always wanted, right? Like Sydney to be the killer because she's like just had the trauma was too much for her. But
oh god,
while I can see that happening with Sam because fans want it, I'm also like, but I feel like in today's climate, that wouldn't be the best path.
Oh, you don't want to blame mental illness on someone becoming a crazed killer? Yeah, it would be in poor taste, but I really do feel like this film is trying to set it up with the antipsychotic meds, the Billy visions, and then this blade wipe at the end. It feels like, hey, maybe Sam has given into her blood loss.
Well, I will tell y'all, though, if we get a Scream 6 and we have a character who is maybe a woman of Latina descent and she does not have any scenes with Sam or Tara, watch out for her. Because she's probably their mom. She's probably the killer.
Oh my gosh. Well, and that is the other thing. I mean, again, yeah, I don't want to go too far down speculation highway, but I do think that we will bring in Christina, that is Tara and Sam's mom, but I think we could also open the door to bring in the dad who left.
Oh, yeah. Well, because this now is about them. And again, I am excited to see what Melissa Barrera does now that we have this baggage shit for her out of the way in another sequel.
Yeah. Yeah, I almost think it would be disappointing if they go the obvious route and make her a killer, but in a way, it's similar to Williamson's treatment that he outlined for a hypothetical 5, right? Where we follow Jill and we get to see her being blackmailed by somebody who knows that she's the killer and so on. So it would kind of make sense. I just don't know that I want that because I want Barrera to get to do more and be unhinged, but I want her to be unhinged in a Sydney way. I don't want a killer way.
Right. But also, I don't, like, if we're even going to go down that path, I don't want a movie of is she or isn't she crazy. I do not want that in my Scream film. I don't like it. I don't like it in any film, to be honest.
It's so 80s.
Well, no, it's like that Buffy episode when she gets stabbed and she's like, oh, she thinks that she's in a mental institution and that like everything's a lie. Like, I know people really like that episode. I fucking hate it. I fucking hate that plot device. I don't like it. I don't want any of that.
Mm-hmm. And we've got a lot of horror films where it's, hey, is this lady crazy or is it really happening? And it's like, ooh, hey, the answer is always she's not crazy because we need to learn to trust women. But also, I don't know, those just don't do as much for me. And honestly, can you imagine a Scream film trying to go that route? That is very different.
The best version of that story I've seen is actually Steven Soderbergh's Unsane.
See, I still haven't seen it.
Oh my god, it's so good. I'm sorry, it's not so good.
No,
but
it's
really
good. It's worth seeing, is what everyone always says.
Yeah, so, I mean, but again, at the end of the day, like, we are just two fans positing what we want. But was there something else you wanted to dig into about a potential sequel?
Me, I want this. I want everything according to me. No, the biggest thing for me, in all actuality, is I really just desperately want to stop bringing everything back to Scream 1. I said it earlier in our discussion. You know, we've done it with 3, we've done it with 4, and now we've done it with 5. I'm just either really happy to leave it behind and start this new story with either Sam and Tara or some of these other new characters. Or can we please investigate some connections to maybe some of the other Stab films or something? Like, I'd love to start playing around with this world that we have created, but they only ever tease. We have seen so much of Stab, and we know so much about it because everything goes back to Scream 1. Like, it's done. We have really done and dusted that, and we are now happy to move on to new territory.
Yeah. I agree. I am pleased with this film. It is a 4 out of 5 for me. I didn't raise it on a second or third viewings, but I definitely was more excited because it was one of the, again, where I was like, I feel like this is a 4 for me, but I'm still like, I have issues. I don't know. As I said earlier, I do prefer 4. Like, my ranking is 2, 1, 4, 5, 3.
Yeah, same with me. But I think I'm coming in slightly lower. Like, if I could give a 0.75, this would probably be a 3.75.
I can totally understand that. And I do think it's a movie that, you know, I mean, because here's the thing. I mean, well, that's the thing. Like, I always love 4 out the gate. I walked out knowing I fucking loved that movie. And I walk out of this knowing I really liked this movie.
Okay. So you really like this movie?
Yeah, I really like it. I think it's a good direction for the franchise to take. I think that these directors are doing a really good job. I would like to see more set pieces. I would like longer climaxes. Don't we all?
Sure.
But no, I this was a very good film.
Yeah, considering the trepidation that we felt going into this and how wrong it could have gotten, this is a great result. We definitely spent a bunch of time nitpicking and talking about things that we think could have been improved upon. At the end of the day, we're lucky, A, that we got a fucking 5th film and that it is as good as it is. I think this will be a film that will probably age well, not just in terms of its villain motivation, but as people get used to, as you said, this is the new normal. Where have we left these characters, right? Like, in terms of continuity, we have advanced now another decade. So I think we got really excited and we went to see the film and now we have to process it and live with where the characters are. So I think over time we'll get more comfortable with that. And I do think people will, their qualms, their issues, I think we'll start to see those pass by the wayside a little.
I have also not watched Scream 4 since watching Scream 5. And so I'm just kind of like, oh God, like that's going to be really sad.
Yeah. Well,
but anyway. Well, that is Scream, everybody, and we hope you enjoyed it. We're sorry it came a little bit late, but obviously, as we detailed at the beginning of the episode, the situation was out of our control.
Indeed, yeah. Plus, please appreciate the extent to which we went to make it happen.
Really just you, so I'll throw that your way. But yes,
cool.
yes,
I'll
please, y'all throw Joe a bone, please. But yeah, so we can cross out Scream.
Indeed, yeah, and cross out Horrorcore's Patreon.
Atlas Avenue, a long stretch of road that encompasses everything the city of Kennett Heights has to offer. Neon lights, traffic, crime, the hustle and bustle of everyday life, and the craziest of characters. My office was above it all. My name is James Locke, and I'm a PI.
Hello, Mr. J. How the hell you doing today?
Good, Edith. Nearly every year I have a new case. New people to meet, new clues to discover, and new problems to solve. But I do it the old-fashioned way. No technology. Nothing post-1950. Hell, I don't even listen to podcasts, but you should. Atlas Avenue Beat is a spoof of the film noir genre with goofy characters, tons of wordplay, and non-stop raunchy humor. There's also 3 whole seasons out right now with more on the way. Just search for Atlas Avenue Beat wherever you listen to podcasts or visit us online at bloody.fm.